Chapter 761. What does your Imperial Majesty mean by this? Seeing Li Er's reaction, Empress Zhongsun asked curiously. At this moment, Princess Changle's attention was also focused on Li Er. This was because she could sense that her imperial father was angry. Humph. Do you know what kind of material is used to make this so-called meteoric success? Thinking of this, Li Er became somewhat angry. He felt that he had been toyed with by Li Zishuan. This servant does not know. Empress Zhongsun shook her head and replied. She had wanted to investigate the materials used to make soaring to glory. However, when she used her chopsticks to take a look, she discovered that the inside was a flour-like substance. She could not tell what it was. The soaring to glory that the Academy made today was made with crushed locusts mixed with flour and eggs. It was not strange that Zhongsun could not tell the ingredient. Locusts. Soaring to glory was made with locusts. Li Zishuan, this stinking brat, actually dared to deceive us. We must properly deal with him. Li Er sat at the head of the table and angrily slapped it. Hearing that they had been eating locusts, Zhongsun and Changle's faces turned deathly pale. Their stomachs churned and they nearly vomited. Imperial Father, please do not blame Brother Shaoxian. Brother Shaoxian definitely would not harm Changle. There must be something hidden here. Changle recovered her wits and promptly pleaded with Li Er. That's right. Your Imperial Majesty. Shaoxian has always been a loyal and righteous child. He does not seem to be someone who does not know the gravity of the situation. Perhaps these locusts really are effective against asthma? Empress Zhongsun glanced at her eldest daughter and then spoke in support. Li Er coldly snorted and said, Humph. There is no need for you to speak for that brat. Yesterday, we already asked the 2 doctors of the Imperial Physician Bureau. They have never heard of locusts being able to treat asthma. From this, it can be seen that Li Zishuan's words are nothing but nonsense. As we see it, this stinking brat is definitely itching for a beating. Seeing that Li Er only spoke fiercely but did not have any intention of punishing him, how could Empress Zhongsun, who had been with Li Er for over 10 years, not understand what he was thinking? She could not help but inwardly breathe a sigh of relief. Perhaps this child remembered wrongly. It can be assumed that he does not have any ill intentions. Your Imperial Majesty, please do not blame him. Humph. I will settle the score with him in the afternoon. Take these things away and don't eat them in the future. Li Er pointed at the meteoric success in the food box and said with a straight face. Yes. Empress Zhongsun responded. Changle, who was next to her, rolled her black eyes as if she was thinking of something. The rain came quickly and left quickly. Around 9 o'clock in the morning, the raindrops had obviously lessened. By noon, 11 o'clock in the morning, the sky had cleared up, the dark clouds had dispersed, and the sun was about to come out. Leader, a lady sent a note to you, saying that it's for you. When it was almost noon, Mo Zhong came to the principal's office and bowed to Li Zishuan. Oh? Did you ask about that woman's identity? Li Zishuan raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. That woman said, Yamacho, once you read the note, you will know who wrote the letter. Give it to me. Li Zishuan ordered. Mo Zhong stepped forward and handed over the note, then tactfully retreated. Li Zishuan opened it and looked at it. His expression changed slightly, and he said with some exasperation, F***ck. This is really good intentions doing a bad thing. Old Li is really narrow-minded. You don't know anything, and you still have the nerve to blame others? If Li Er heard this, he might go into battle and beat Li Zishuan up. Sigh, speaking of which, don't the doctors at this time realize the medicinal value of locusts? It shouldn't be. Now that old man's son is not in Chang'an, what should I do? Yamacho, someone from the palace is here. He said that he wants you to prepare to enter the palace to meet the emperor. In the afternoon, Mo Zhong came to the principal's office again, but this time, Li Zishuan had already changed into a purple official's robe, as if he was already prepared to enter the palace. Okay, I got it. You go down first, I will come later. Li Zishuan responded and said. That's right, he was indeed prepared. The note in the morning was a letter that Changle asked a palace maid to send over. In the letter, he completely explained Li Er's plan and attitude to him, so that he could be mentally prepared in advance. Yes. After a while, Li Zishuan rode a carriage out of the academy, followed by the palace attendant from the palace, and headed in the direction of the palace. It had just rained heavily, and the mountain roads were extremely difficult to travel on, so this trip took more than an hour before they arrived at the palace. Your Majesty, Li Zhanshe is already here. At the Sweet Dew Hall, a small yellow door entered the hall and bowed carefully. Announce, Li Zhanshe for an audience. Hearing the eunuch's shout, Li Zishuan took small steps and entered the hall seriously. He then bowed to Li Er and said, Your subject greets your Majesty. Li Zishuan, you maliciously deceived me and tricked the Empress and Princess into eating locusts. How should you be punished? Li Er didn't let Li Zishuan get up. Instead, he directly pressured him coldly. Your subject is terrified. Your subject doesn't know when I have deceived your Majesty. Your Majesty, please enlighten me. Although he knew what Li Er meant, Li Zishuan still pretended to be ignorant and asked. After all, Changle had kindly informed him of Gaut's news. He couldn't betray an ally at a critical moment. Humph. Do you need me to remind you of what you did? What did you tell me yesterday? Didn't you say that locusts could cure Changle's asthma? But why did I ask all the imperial physicians in the palace, but none of them knew that locusts had this function? And you still say that you are not deceiving me? Li Er glared and said angrily. Li Zishuan was already mentally prepared for this. He began to put on an act and said with a surprised expression, How is this possible? Your Majesty is wise. Locusts do indeed have extremely high medicinal value. What I told your Majesty yesterday was only the tip of the iceberg. These things were all said by my master himself. If your Majesty doesn't believe me, you can ask Priest Sun when he returns to Chang'an. What I said is absolutely not false. In fact, locusts could not only stop coughing and asthma, detoxify, penetrate rashes, treat whooping cough, bronchial asthma, infantile convulsions, sore throats, obstructed rashes, bronchitis, stop cramps, and so on. They could also reduce blood pressure, lose weight, lower cholesterol, nourish the body, and nourish the stomach and spleen. If eaten for a long time, they could prevent cardiovascular and cerebrovascular diseases. When used externally, they could treat otitis media. Frosted locusts could treat dysentery, enteritis, and so on. Whether it was Changle or Li Tai, locusts were very beneficial to their bodies. It was just that many doctors had yet to realize the value of locusts. Chapter 762. In the Sweet Dew Hall. Li Er, who was originally full of doubts, couldn't help but become hesitant after hearing Li Zishuan's solemn explanation. However, he didn't give in easily. Brat, you're using your master as a scapegoat again. Why did spiritual master Lingshu accept such a wicked disciple? Li Zishuan almost vomited blood. He thought to himself, wasn't I forced by you? If you were slightly more cultured, would I have to fight like this? Your Majesty, I was originally pure and kind. However, I entered the big vat of corruption that is the imperial court. However, I absolutely have a pure and innocent heart towards your Majesty and my master. Li Zishuan played a slick trick and said. This time, it was Li Er's turn to vomit blood. Brat, what do you mean? Don't tell me that my court has polluted you? Cough cough. I definitely didn't mean that. Li Zishuan shook his head and cupped his hands. He flatly denied. I only meant to say that surviving in the imperial court is far more complicated than what I learned in the mountains. I still have many things to learn. Li Er glanced at Li Zishuan and said unhappily, You're so glib-tongued at such a young age. You've ruined the integrity of a loyal official. Li Zishuan didn't care. He never wanted to be a loyal official. It was too tiring. He also didn't want to be a sycophantic official. It was too smelly. He only wanted to live happily and freely. Your Majesty is right. I will definitely remember it in my heart. Looking up and seeing Li Er's face of disbelief, Li Zishuan could only change the topic. He said, Your Majesty's previous concern, other than the effect of locusts, was that locusts couldn't be eaten by ordinary people. If this meteoric success was made from flour, even if it couldn't cure the illness, Your Majesty wouldn't blame me. In fact, it was true. Li Er knew clearly that his family's disease, Qi disease, could not be cured. After knowing that his meteoric rise was caused by locusts and that it could not help Changle's illness, Li Er was furious. But what he was really angry about was that his daughter had suffered so much. She ate locusts but could not be cured. If meteoric rise was made by something slightly more normal, Li Er might not be so angry. As for the effects of the locusts, my master came across it by chance during his medical practice. He didn't leave behind any medical books or note. Moreover, Priest Sun isn't in Chang'an right now, so I can't immediately prove the effects of the locusts to Your Majesty. However, I can guarantee that the locusts are not disgusting insects. Their meat is very delicious and has high nutritional value. It is comparable to black chicken and bird's nest. Words have no proof. I just happened to bring some of the soaring meteoric success that the Academy made this afternoon. Speaking of this, Li Zishuan took out an oil paper package from his arms and opened it, revealing the golden soaring meteoric success inside. Li Er stared and said, Why do you bring these things with you? Li Zishuan replied, Your Majesty, since I invented the way to eat locusts, I usually bring some with me. When I am hungry, I can eat it as a snack. It is very delicious. Your Majesty, please forgive my rudeness. Seeing such delicious food, I can't hold back. After saying this, Li Zishuan apologized to Li Er. Then, he couldn't wait to grab a piece of soaring meteoric success and put it into his mouth. He deliberately chewed it until it was crispy, causing the palace maids and eunuchs outside to blush with shame. Oh, it's really delicious. Your Majesty, do you want to try it? Li Er was frowning when Li Zishuan handed over a piece of soaring meteoric success and asked. Scram! Even though Li Zishuan looked like he was eating very happily, Li Er couldn't help but feel nauseous when he thought that this thing was made by locusts. He then angrily said, I will take my leave. When Li Zishuan heard this, not only did he not feel ashamed, but he also felt like he had been pardoned. He immediately took the opportunity to take his leave. Li Er waved his hand in annoyance and didn't want to bother with Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan bowed and slowly left the hall. Wretch, wretch! Li Zishuan quickly walked out of the imperial city and immediately scurried to a corner and retched. The heavens took pity on him. This was the first time he had eaten such disgusting things like locusts in his previous life. Although he knew that locusts had many benefits for the human body, although he had made a solemn vow in front of Li Er just now and acted beautifully when he actually ate locusts himself, he still couldn't help but feel disgusted. Cough, cough. His performance in front of Li Er just now was just an act. What about bringing soaring meteoric success with him every day as a snack? These were all lies. The reason he brought a bag of soaring meteoric success today was because Changle had secretly informed him in the morning and he had prepared it in advance to deal with Li Er. Therefore, the cause of these twists and turns was Changle, but the person who helped him through these difficulties was still Changle. Sigh, I've finally gotten rid of old Li. But in the end, it's still because there are too few medical books in this era that specifically introduce medicinal herbs. This led to the imperial physicians of the Imperial Medical Department not to recognize the magical effects of locusts. It seems that when Old Sun returns to Chang'an, it's necessary to ask him to compile a medical book similar to the Compendium of Materia Medica. After calming down his tumbling stomach, Li Zixuan thought silently in his heart. In fact, there were many medical books that could be used in the Tang Empire, such as Shenong's Materia Medica, Emperor's Canon of Internal Medicine, Yellow Emperor's Canon of Internal Medicine, Treatise on Typhoid and Miscellaneous Diseases, Synopsis of the Golden Chamber, and the 1,000 gold prescription that Sun Simiao might have started writing. These medical books could be said to have built a more complete medical system, but there were still certain limitations. Because the starting point of these medical books was to prescribe medicine for diseases. Overall, their contents were mainly prescriptions for various diseases. But there were millions of diseases in the world. How could they cover all of them? Therefore, at this time, a medical book was needed to find another way to improve the current medical system. The Compendium of Materia Medica was a peerless book that was compiled in the style of categorizing categories. It was different from the previous medical books in that it introduced prescriptions by categorizing the herbs in the world into categories. Li Shizhen used about 27 years, and after 3 rewrites, it was finally completed in the 6th year of the Wanli era. There were more than 9 million words in the book, containing 1,892 types of medicine, 11,092 medical prescriptions, and 1,160 beautifully drawn illustrations. It was divided into 16 parts and 60 categories. It was a comprehensive collection of traditional Chinese medicine from the Han Dynasty in ancient China. It was a systematic summary of Chinese medicine before the 16th century. It was known as the Magnum Canon of Oriental Medicine and had a great impact on modern science. In his previous life, although Li Zixuan did not read the Compendium of Materia Medica, he had read part of it. The medical effects of locusts were what he read in the Compendium of Materia Medica in his previous life. Now that he had abnormal mental strength, if he seriously recalled, he could still recall some of the content. Chapter 763. After leaving the palace safely, Li Zixuan went straight back to the academy. From afar, he could hear the deafening cheers from the field. The students were especially enthusiastic about their training this afternoon. As for the reason, of course, it was because today was a holiday. According to the academy calendar that Li Zixuan set, today was Friday. After the afternoon training, the students would welcome a 2-day holiday. For the students who had been tortured for such a long time, this was undoubtedly great news. No wonder they were not excited. When Li Zixuan was in the military training in the university in his previous life, he spent his weekends and days in the military camp. In comparison, this group of students was considered very lucky. Shaking his head, Li Zixuan walked towards his office. The field was in full swing and extremely noisy, but the Guanghua building was unusually quiet. This was because the teachers of the academy were racing against time to study the courses that they were going to teach this semester. How is it? Can you see it? How far can you see? When Li Zixuan walked to the 9th floor, he suddenly heard Yan Xiaoning's voice from the corridor. He could not help but stop and turn around to walk there. In the corridor, Mo Lingwei was holding a black cylindrical object. One end was placed on her left eye socket and the other end was facing the foot of the mountain in front of the academy. Yan Xiaoning was extremely anxious at the side. He was very eager to know the result. However, Mo Lingwei did not care about him at all. She was still focused on looking at the scenery. Hey, Wei, tell me quickly. Did you succeed this time? Can you see the scenery from afar? Yan Xiaoning was so anxious that he scratched his ears and cheek. If he was not afraid of the girl in front of him, he would have already snatched it. It was worth mentioning that before, he called Mo Lingwei an ink girl. Now, he directly called her Wei. It seemed that their recent progress was quite good. What's the rush? Little Ning, let me finish looking at it first. Mo Lingwei waved her fists and pretended to chase Yan Xiaoning away. No, Wei, you've been looking at it for almost half an hour. Are you not done yet? How long are you going to look at it? At this moment, Yan Xiaoning felt that women were really troublesome. They were not cute at all. It's only been half an hour. You've lost your patience after half an hour? Little Ning, you're a man. Why are you nagging like an old woman? Are you still a man? Hearing the urging, Mo Lingwei immediately, Yan Xiao Shui Yan. You. Yan Xiaoning was so angry that he was trembling. You, for a long time, but he couldn't say anything. Suddenly, he had an idea. He moved his feet and came to the front of Mo Lingwei. Then, he used his right eye to look at the other end of the cylindrical object in Mo Lingwei's hand. Then, the image froze there. Ah! Little Ning, you're courting death. After about 3 breaths of silence, Mo Lingwei suddenly screamed and took a few steps back. She looked at Yan Xiaoning with dissatisfaction and said angrily, God knows how she would feel when a huge eye appeared in her field of vision. Anyway, the person involved, Mo Lingwei, didn't want to experience this kind of experience again. Li Zixuan, who had just witnessed this scene, suddenly couldn't help but think of a song from his previous life. After confirming with my eyes, I met the right person, I waved my sword and turned around, and blood like red lips, in the memory of the previous dynasty, it's not the blade that hurts people. It's your reincarnated soul. After confirming with my eyes, I met the right person, I spurred my horse to battle. The sound of the horse's hooves is like running tears, the moonlight on the bluestone floor shines into the mountain city. I followed you all the way to reincarnate, I have deep feelings for you, the old tree roots beside Luoyang City. This song was pretty king fitting here. Yan Xiaoning and Mo Lingwei just looked at each other after confirming with their eyes. What are you shouting for? I just asked you to show it to me. If you don't want to, I can go and see it myself. Do you have to have such a big reaction? Yan Xiaoning's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. Taking advantage of Mo Lingwei's panic, he snatched the cylindrical object from her hand and then looked at it himself happily. What the *CK? Xiao Xian. When did you come over? You didn't even make a sound when you walked. Are you trying to scare me to death in broad daylight? Yan Xiaoning adjusted the direction of his gaze and saw Li Zixuan's huge figure in his field of vision. He was so scared that he almost threw the thing in his hand away. As the saying goes, if you don't do anything wrong in the day, you won't be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door in the middle of the night. Xiaoning, you're so flustered. Could it be that you have a guilty conscience? Li Zixuan stared into Yan Xiaoning's eyes and said meaningfully. Damn. You're so weird. I think you're the one with a guilty conscience. Yan Xiaoning rolled his eyes and said in annoyance. As a straight man who was destined to be alone for the rest of his life, how could he have a guilty conscience? This was called being calm, okay? Yamacho, you're here. Just in time, come and take a look at the clairvoyance that we just made. Xiaoning, quickly take out the clairvoyance. Mo Lingwei couldn't help but feel a little angry when she saw Yan Xiaoning acting like a block of wood. But when she thought of the results of the past few days of hard work, she couldn't help but come forward and say excitedly to Li Zixuan. Oh. Yan Xiaoning responded dully and then handed the clairvoyance in his hand to Li Zixuan. The outer shell was made of wood. Li Zixuan judged the material of the clairvoyance's outer shell as soon as he held it in his hand. It was made of high-quality Phoebe Jinan wood, complemented by peerless carving skills. It was very classy and impressive. This was obviously the masterpiece of Strange Pavilion's Heavenly Knife Lu. 2 lenses were embedded at both ends of the wooden tube, one big and one small. Li Zixuan put the clairvoyance close to his eye socket and then looked into the distance. He realized that the flowers, grass, and trees at the gate of the academy were all reflected in his eyes, and even the texture was unusually clear. Although with Li Zixuan's current eyesight, he could still see things that were so far away even without the clairvoyance, but with the clairvoyance, he still felt that things were bigger and clearer. Not bad. You've already adjusted the distance between these two lenses very well, and it can meet the requirements of the clairvoyance. Ink Girl, shouting, you've done very well, and the progress is also quite fast. I'm very satisfied. Li Zishuan looked at the two of them and sincerely praised them. Oh, it's rare that you're satisfied with Yamacho, it's really not easy. Mo Lingwei said excitedly with a bright smile on her face. Logically speaking, it could be said that Mo Lingwei and Yen Xiaoning had put in a lot of effort to be able to go from nothing to making the clairvoyance in just 10 days. Although they had the support of the powerful and advanced production capabilities of the workshop behind them, their hard work couldn't be ignored. It was indeed very difficult. Chapter 764. Yamacho, does this mean that I've succeeded? You have to keep your promise to me. Mo Lingwei became excited when she heard Li Zishuan's affirmation. Li Zishuan chuckled. Haha, you're still far from success. Back then, I asked you to build an astronomical telescope. Miss Mo, don't tell me you think you can see the moon in the sky with this little thing? Mo Lingwei blinked curiously. Why can't I? My clairvoyance can already see very far. Can't I use it to see the moon? Of course not. Seeing that Yen Xiaoning was also puzzled, Li Zishuan had no choice but to patiently explain to them. I've told you guys before that the magnification of the clairvoyance is related to the focal length of the objective lens and the eyepiece. The clairvoyance that you guys are making now has a magnification of at most 7 to 8 times. That is to say, a person who uses this to see a distance of 1,000 feet will only be able to see a distance of about 10 to 12 feet. The moon is about 880,000 miles away from us. Do you think we can clearly see what the moon looks like with this? Usually, the moon is about 400,000 kilometers away from the Earth. In the Tang Dynasty, Li Shimon's 2 steps, 1 step for each of his left and right feet, was used as the standard. It was called Bu. It was stipulated that 300 steps was 1 Li, and 1/5 of 1 Bu was 1 Qi. In the Tang Dynasty, 1 Qi was 0.303 meters, and 1 Li was 454 meters. The distance between the Earth and the Moon was about 880,000 miles in the Tang Dynasty. 880,000 miles? How far is that? The two of them were speechless. Yen Xiaoning thought for a while and asked, Xiaoxian, according to what you said, we just need to increase the magnification of the clairvoyance next? Li Zishuan rubbed his chin and replied, yes, but it's not just about increasing the magnification. When the magnification is too high, the final image of the clairvoyance will be seriously distorted. You have to think of a way to reduce the distortion of the image. Otherwise, no matter how high the magnification is, it will be useless. Mo Lingwei frowned and asked, Yamacho, what do you mean by image distortion? She could not be blamed for being ignorant. It was mainly because this knowledge had not been covered in the first volume of the physics textbook. Li Zishuan organized his words and explained, previously, I told you about the imaging principle of the convex lens. In fact, those are the cases where the light rays are close to the central optical axis. But in fact, there is always a part of the light rays that are not close to the central optical axis. They are at the edge of the lens. Compared to the actual object, the final image of this part of the light rays has a certain deformation. I call it distortion. For the clairvoyance, if you wanted to obtain a higher magnification factor, the overall length of its optical path would have to be longer. At this time, a small distortion would become even bigger after such a long optical path. So in the future, when you increase the magnification of the clairvoyance, don't neglect the image quality. According to my experience, as long as you can ensure that the magnification is above 30 times, you can basically meet the requirements of astronomical observation. Li Zishuan was very familiar with binoculars. When he was in high school, one of his roommates brought a pair of binoculars with the excuse of looking at the scenery opposite the dormitory. But in reality, he was only looking at the girls' dormitory. In the end, the boy's binoculars were confiscated by the head teacher, who suddenly came to check on the dormitory. When he was in university, thanks to the school's geographical location, he once spent 35 yuan to go in on the opening day of a certain planetarium in the capital. It could be said that he personally used an astronomical telescope. Moreover, his undergraduate and postgraduate studies involved a considerable part of the knowledge of optics. He even personally polished lenses during his internship. In the Tang Dynasty, he could be called an expert in optics. This was also why he could explain it to Mo Lingwei, Yan Xiaoning, and the others so clearly and logically. Then Xiao Xian, how should we solve the imaging distortion? To be honest, Yan Xiaoning wasn't shocked at all by the endless stream of new knowledge that kept popping out of Li Zixuan's head because he was already numb to it. What was more important than being shocked was that he had to try his best to absorb the new knowledge that Li Zixuan spat out. This is very difficult. Li Zixuan shook his head with a complicated expression. To solve the imaging distortion and chromatic aberration problem of lenses, the method of cementing lenses was often used in modern times. By fixing 2 or more lenses with photosensitive glue and baking them with ultraviolet light, after going through 2 curing processes, a set of cemented lenses could be obtained. In modern times, some of the precision optical components, such as the objective lens of a microscope, the eyepiece of a telescope, and so on, used lens sets that were cemented with photosensitive glue. If only a simple convex or concave lens was used, it would be very difficult to obtain a better imaging result. However, in this era where basic science was extremely backward, wanting to control the imaging distortion like modern optical lens companies was tantamount to a fool's dream. Not to mention that there was no photosensitive glue, there was no way to even obtain pure ultraviolet light. In this case, how could they make a cemented lens set? Although it's very difficult, you can think of a way to replace a simple single lens with a lens set composed of many small lenses that are very close to each other. Also, you have to keep the overall imaging light path unchanged. This way, the results might be different. After pondering for a long time, Li Zixuan could only give it a shot and said in the end. Yan Xiaoning and Mo Lingwei both fell into deep thought. Clang, 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 clang. With the crisp sound of gongs and drums, Yanhuang Academy's training for the day was finally over. Qin Qiong, who was late because of the heavy rain in the morning, as the chief military instructor of the academy, blew the whistle decisively. School is over. The students' enthusiasm for training today was very high. There was no need to deliberately make things difficult for them, so Qin Qiong's impression of the instructors was quite good. Once school was over, he decisively let the students go to school without any hesitation. Oh, it's the holidays. I can finally go home and sleep in. Ha. I must eat a lot of meat these 2 days. Drunken immortal restaurant, this young master is coming. The students burst into cheers, and then Yanhuang College became a sea of joy. Cheers could be heard everywhere. The students ran back to the dormitory like a gust of wind, then rushed out of the dormitory, out of the college gate, and directly down the mountain to Chang'an City. Chapter 765. 2/3 of the students in Yanhuang College came from outside Chang'an City, so only a small number of students went home during the 2-day holiday. Although the rest of the students could not go home, they were very happy that they did not have to go through military training. However, as the saying goes, fortune and misfortune depend on each other, and misfortune hide within each other. Sometimes, not being able to go home was actually a kind of luck. F***ck. I just came back and I want to poop. Jiang Wuyun, bring this young master some toilet paper. It didn't take long for Ching Chumo to return to Chang'an. As soon as he entered the house, he suddenly felt that his chrysanthemum was tight and he wanted to poop. Ching Chumo quickly went straight to the outhouse and ordered his errand boy. Jiang Wuyun, who was in the front yard, saw Ching Chumo enter the courtyard. He wanted to greet him, but when he heard such a sentence, he was suddenly stunned. "Hey! Young master, what is toilet paper?" Jiang Weiyun chased after Ching Chumo and shouted loudly. Ching Chumo, who had just walked to the front of the cottage, paused his steps, patted his head and said in annoyance, "F***ck, I almost forgot, there is no toilet paper at home. Forget it, bring me some newspapers." Jiang Weiyun took the order and left. Ching Chumo shook his head and went into the outhouse with an unhappy face. F***ck, why is it so smelly? Ching Chumo, who was used to the outhouse of the academy, came back and saw his own outhouse and immediately began to dislike it. His outhouse not only did not have the white and smooth toilet of the academy, but also did not have a complete flushing system. It looked disgusting and smelled bad. No wonder this guy began to dislike it. Young master, our outhouse has always been like this?" Jiang Weiyun, who had just brought a newspaper, stood outside the outhouse and said in amazement. Okay, I know you can go." Ching Chumo stretched out his hand and took the newspaper into the outhouse and said helplessly. Ching Chumo, who had just left Yanhuang College for less than an hour, had already begun to miss his life in Yanhuang College. When he was in the academy, he wanted to leave the academy. Now that he was out of the academy, he wanted to go back to the academy. Was this the legendary act of being cheap? In fact, Ching Chumo was not the only student who was embarrassed. When the students returned home, they were not used to the sudden change in architectural style. Most of the buildings in Yanhuang College were foreign-style buildings made of cement bricks, while the students' homes were in the classical style with wooden doors and windows. It was hard to say which style was better or worse. It could only be said that the students were used to living in the classical style of wooden buildings and windows. When they first entered Yanhuang College, they felt that living in the style of Yanhuang College was more comfortable. In addition, similar to Ching Chumo's situation, the students all discovered the superiority of the academy's toilets. The clean and hygienic toilets were incomparable to their own toilet. Housekeeper, go to Chitsu Pavilion and help me buy some toilet paper." In the Sun Mansion, Sun Zifen came out of the outhouse with a constipated expression on his face and said to the housekeeper in the courtyard, "Looking at this guy's expression, God knows how much he suffered in the outhouse. Young master, what is toilet paper?" The housekeeper looked at Sun Zifen with a puzzled face and asked. Sun Zifen frowned and impatiently waved his hand and said, It's very hygienic paper. Housekeeper, you can go to Chitsu Pavilion and ask. The people there will definitely know." The steward answered in a daze and went out. However, after a while, he turned back and said embarrassedly, "Young master, now that the gate is about to close, there should be no one at Strange Interest Pavilion." Sun Zifen was speechless and said, "Then let's go tomorrow morning." Most of the Yanhuang College students who returned to Chang and encountered the embarrassing situation of not having toilet paper in the outhouse. After leaving the academy, they felt uncomfortable everywhere. But there was one person who was luckier, and that was Li Tai. "Hey! Fortunately, royal sister has toilet paper, otherwise wouldn't this prince be slaughtered?" Li Tai came out of the outhouse with a roll of toilet paper in his arms. He was very satisfied as he thought to himself, now in the entire Tang Dynasty, except for Li Zishuan's house and Yanhuang College, only Chang'e had toilet paper. Previously, when Chang'e followed Li Zishuan and Empress Zhongsun to tour Yanhuang College, Li Chengqian suddenly had a stomachache, and Chang'e inadvertently discovered the wonderful use of toilet paper. Then, the little girl took the initiative to ask Li Zishuan for a batch of toilet paper. Li Zishuan had always treated such an obedient and lovely little girl like Chang'e as his own sister. After hearing Chang'e's request, Li Zishuan naturally agreed. He arranged for a cart of toilet paper to be sent to the palace that day. Li Tai took advantage of this loophole and was able to obtain the precious toilet paper. Sigh. The only flaw is that the outhouse in the residence is not as comfortable as the one in the academy. I have to admire Xiaoshuan's design skills. He can even come up with new tricks in the outhouse. The outhouse in the Prince of Wei's residence was not dirty or smelly, but Li Tai still felt that the outhouse in the academy was more comfortable to squat in. Chief Gu, tomorrow, go and invite a group of craftsmen who participated in the construction of Yanhuang College to renovate the residence. Ask them to do as much as possible in the style of the academy. Li Tai found the chief of the residence and whispered to him. Yes, Your Highness. The so-called Elder Gu was a middle-aged scholar in his early 30s. He bowed and said, By the way, ask someone to buy some toilet paper from the Wonderful Taste Pavilion tomorrow. It's not good to keep borrowing toilet paper from Chang'e, Li Tai added after some thought. Chief Gu was speechless. What kind of borrowing is this? What's the difference between borrowing and not returning and stealing? Yes, Your Highness. To a certain extent, the Yanhuang College students who returned home during the holidays were like a batch of sparks that spread to the world and ignited a prairie fire. Through word of mouth, people gradually learned about toilet paper, water pipes, showers, and other novelties. After listening to the descriptions of the students from the academy, they felt that these things were quite useful, especially toilet paper. This soft thing that could replace the hard-as-iron toilet paper was simply a blessing to everyone. As long as one was not short of money and valued quality of life, there was no one who did not yearn for toilet paper. But where should they buy it? Many people subconsciously thought of the Wonderful Taste Pavilion because toilet paper first appeared in Yanhuang College. Li Zishuan was the Yamacho of Yanhuang College and the big boss of the Wonderful Taste Pavilion. If toilet paper were to be sold to the public, it would definitely be at the Wonderful Taste Pavilion. Thus, early the next morning, the Wonderful Taste Pavilion welcomed a large group of customers. The line had already filled the entire street. Chapter 766. Whoa! Why are there so many people here today? As soon as Sun Huayuan opened the door of the Strange Interest Pavilion, he was shocked by the huge crowd outside. He rubbed his eyes and couldn't help but wonder, Strange Interest Pavilion hasn't launched any new products recently? Why are all these people here? Did Lord Zhu come up with some new information? Ever since the Divine Mirror and Azure Glaze Cup were launched a few days ago, Curious Pavilion's customer flow had been relatively stable. Today, however, there was a sudden surge in customer flow. Sun Huayuan, the shopkeeper of Curious Pavilion, couldn't understand it. Shopkeeper Sun, you've hidden it well. Curious Pavilion has such a good item like toilet paper, but you didn't sell it earlier. You're too mean. Chao Wendong, who was at the front of the line, laughed loudly when he saw Sun Huaiming. He was rich, so of course, he didn't need to line up every time. However, he wanted to build a good relationship with Li Zishuan and the people around Li Zishuan. Moreover, he valued Li Zishuan's business opportunity very much. Therefore, whenever Curious Pavilion launched a new product, Chao Wendong would always be in the line to buy it. That's right. Boss Sun, you're too mean. In the past, I, Li, have patronized every new item in Strange Interest Pavilion. That's right. If I didn't hear from old Wang's son next door, I wouldn't have known that Curious Pavilion has toilet paper. Shopkeeper Sun, you can't hide it. If you have something good, you should share it with everyone. It's not like we can't afford it, right? Yes. As long as it's good, it doesn't matter if it's a little expensive. We earn so much money, but in the end we still want to enjoy ourselves. These were the words of two seemingly stupid but rich fellows. Sun Huayuan was a little stunned by this indiscriminate bombardment. He only reacted after a while. He cupped his hands and asked, "Dear guests, where did you hear that Curious Pavilion sells toilet paper? Forgive me for being blunt, but I've never received any news that my boss is selling toilet paper." Buzz. Sun Huayuan's gaze was like a drop of water splashed into a boiling pot of oil. The people who had been lining up for a long time immediately exploded. What? Odd Interest Pavilion doesn't sell toilet paper? I've been waiting in line for almost half an hour. What are you doing? In order to buy toilet paper for my young master, I've been waiting here for an hour. In the end, I didn't manage to buy it. It's over now. I'm going to get scolded when I go back. Two young men wearing servant hats complained to each other after hearing Sun Huayuan's words. Damn it. Shopkeeper's son, you can't scare people like this. Who doesn't know that toilet paper was invented by the Yamacho? Who would believe you if you say that strange pavilion doesn't have it? In the crowd, Wang Meng rubbed his buttocks and shouted at the top of his voice. This guy had completely forgotten his own identity and was actually helping an outsider to harm his teacher. Cough cough. The main reason was that he was used to using toilet paper at Yanhuang College. After returning home yesterday, he had to use toilet paper again, so he wasn't used to it. It just so happened that he was unlucky. There was a thin and short bamboo stick on the toilet paper, and Wang Meng's buttocks were instantly pierced by it. That was why he hurried over to Strange Interest Pavilion early in the morning to try his luck. However, he didn't expect that there would be so many heroes who had the same idea as him. Wang Meng's voice was famous for being loud. Sun Huayuan could hear him clearly even from afar. After hearing what he said, his old face darkened, and he was so angry that he almost went downstairs to drag Wang Meng out and give him a good beating. This was because he knew that the person who had spoken was definitely a student from Yanhuang College. A student who actually dared to scam the Yamacho. If such a student didn't deserve to be beaten up, then who should be? That's right. Shopkeeper's son, from what you said just now, it seems like you already know about the existence of toilet paper. Moreover, Strange Interest Pavilion also seems to have toilet paper, but why don't you take the initiative to sell it? Chao Wendong's eyes suddenly lit up. He found the contradiction in Sun Huayuan's words, so he asked. The other merchants, servants, students, and commoners all quieted down. They wanted to see how Sun Huayuan would answer. Sun Huayuan smiled bitterly and said, Boss Chow, I indeed knew about the existence of toilet paper a long time ago. However, at the beginning, the workshop's production of toilet paper was limited. In fact, Faubert didn't want to waste resources to produce this kind of meaningless toilet paper. All the toilet paper produced was sent to the boss's residence. After that, Yanhuang College started school, and the workshop opened a branch in Plum Village. Only then did the production of toilet paper gradually increase. However, at that time, the toilet paper was mainly supplied to the teachers and students of Yanhuang College. The boss didn't have any intention of selling it outside. The surrounding crowd was speechless. What else could they say when they encountered a willful boss who didn't want to earn money even if he had it? They could only cry without tears. Boss son, if such a good thing can't be sold outside, it would be a pity. Strange Interest Pavilion is a shop that constantly brings joy and convenience to everyone's lives. My brothers and I have always liked and supported it very much. I hope that Shopkeeper's son and Lord Ju can seriously consider including toilet paper in the queue for goods to be sold. Chao Wendong and Sun Huayuan stirred up emotions for a while before pleading with a sincere expression. That's right. Boss Chao is right. We have always supported Strange Interest Pavilion, and we hope that Lord Li can consider our request. That's right, it's just some toilet paper. I don't think Lord Li will care about this. Seeing that the atmosphere in the hall had been stirred up again, Sun Huayuan had no choice but to agree in order to be safe. Everyone, please don't be impatient. I will personally convey your request to the boss. In the end, it will still be up to him. Okay. Thank you for your trouble, Shopkeeper's son. Yo. Shopkeeper's son. In the Yunshan residence, Li Zixuan had a guest who had never been to his house before. Lord Ju, I hope I'm not disturbing you? Sun Huayuan looked at the Western-style house in front of him and asked carefully. No, shopkeeper's son, is there something you need from me? Come in, let's talk. Li Zishuan ordered the servants to serve tea as he brought Sun Huayuan to the study on the first floor. After seeing the luxurious interior of the Western-style house, Sun Huayuan was shocked again. He thought about the rumors that many Yanhuang College students couldn't help but return to school today after going home for the holidays. He sighed in his heart. I've heard that Yanhuang College's construction is extremely luxurious. If the decorations are like this house, then it's possible that the students can't bear to leave school and return. Chapter 767. Lord Zhu, this is what happened from the beginning to the end. I was forced by them to come and disturb you. In the study room, Sun Huayuan told Li Zishuan about what happened in the morning with a bitter face. Speaking of which, it was easy for Li Zishuan to be a hands-off shopkeeper, but Sun Huayuan was not at all relaxed as the front shopkeeper. He had to be smooth and slick, and not provoke enemies for the main house for no reason. When facing all kinds of customers, he had to be careful and greet them with a smile. Oh, these people are really interesting. They actually came to you to ask for toilet paper. Li Zishuan raised his eyebrows in surprise. Then, he muttered, the current workshop can supply the toilet paper, but there are so many people fighting for it. It's easy to fall short of supply. Sigh, forget it. I'll sell it first. Shopkeeper's son, later on, tell the workshop to increase the production scale of toilet paper. If they don't have enough manpower, they can recruit people from Plum Village and the nearby villages. Now, the workshop of Strange Taste Pavilion had taken root in Plum Village. Its scale was several times larger than before. Also, it was more convenient to place paper making, which was a highly polluting process, near the river. Yes, Lord Zhu. Li Zishuan's decision was beyond Sun Huayuan's expectations. He had tried to persuade Li Zishuan to sell toilet paper in the past, but Li Zishuan had never taken it seriously. He knew that the main reason was because the fairy mirror and colored glass cup were available in the Strange Taste Pavilion, while the winery had Drunken Immortal and Gentle Village. Li Zishuan didn't care about the profits from toilet paper. This time, he didn't have high hopes, but he didn't expect Li Zishuan to agree. Sun Huayuan left with satisfaction. This result allowed him to report to Chao Wendong and the other rich businessmen. He did not have to be in a difficult position anymore. Of course, he had reason to be happy. Li Zishuan sat in the study room. His fingers tapped rhythmically on the armrest of the chair. He had a thoughtful look on his face. Husband, what's wrong? Is there something on your mind? Han Yushi saw that Sun Huayuan had come out of the study room, but Li Zishuan did not come out. She could not help but come in to see what was going on. She saw Li Zishuan leaning on the armchair with an inexplicable expression. So, she walked up and asked softly, "Oh, wife, come, sit here." Li Zishuan came out of his thoughts. He moved a little to the right of the chair and pointed to the empty space on the left. He smiled at Han Yushi. The armchairs in his house were quite spacious. They were the kind that was more than enough for one person to sit on, but it would be a little crowded if two people sat on them. This guy wanted to take advantage of his wife blatantly. Han Yushi glared at her husband, but after thinking about it, she still walked to Li Zishuan's side and sat down. Li Zishuan smiled. He put his arm around his wife's waist and said, Sun Huayuan just came here to plead for the people of the people. Just now, shopkeeper's son came to petition on behalf of the people. Today, the curious pavilion was surrounded by many merchants and ordinary people who wanted to buy toilet paper. It seems that the people of our great Tang have all suffered the harm of toilet paper. This was a private matter. Thinking about how she had used toilet paper in the past, Han Yushi blushed and asked, "Husband, you agreed just now, right? I saw that Sun Huayuan was in a very good mood when he left." "Haha, my wife is smart," Li Zishuan praised. Then, he sighed and said, your husband has never cared about the small profits brought in by toilet paper. However, your husband has neglected the needs of the people of the Great Tang. He has also neglected the original intention of establishing the Strange Taste Pavilion. When the Strange Taste Pavilion was established, it was to create new and interesting things in the world to make life easier for the people. But now, wife, do you think that your husband is obsessed with money? In fact, this was also the main reason why Li Zixuan had agreed to Sun Huayuan's request. Chao Wendong and the others' words in front of the Strange Taste Pavilion had made him happy and alert. He had thought that toilet paper would not make much money, so he had never considered selling it. Obviously, this went against the original intention of establishing the Strange Taste Pavilion. The market should not be decided by profits, but by practicality. Otherwise, he would become a businessman who only cared about profits and not a great man of the era. So this is what my husband is thinking about? Han Yushi giggled and said, Actually, my husband, you are thinking too much. In my opinion, the reason why my husband hasn't sold the toilet paper is not because the profit is small, but because my husband is now wholeheartedly devoted to the affairs of the academy and doesn't want to manage these trivial matters. That's true. After hearing Han Yushi's words, Li Zixuan's mood immediately improved. He hugged his wife and laughed shamelessly, Ha ha! My wife knows me best. In the evening, Li Zixuan made another trip to the academy because there were still more than 400 foreign students living there. The youngest was the 6-year-old prodigy Jia Jane. It was fine if there was a military training instructor on a normal day, but if there was no one on the weekend, he was worried that the students would cause trouble in the academy. Wang Meng? Sun Zifan? Why are you two stinking brats back again? Could it be that you are not awake and remembered the school day wrongly? Coincidentally, as soon as Li Zixuan entered the academy, he saw Sun Zifan and Wang Meng walking in front of him with a bag slung over their shoulders. Li Zixuan quickly caught up with them and asked, Yamacho, hello. Sun Zifan heard Li Zixuan's voice and quickly stopped in his tracks, turned around and saluted. Yamacho, hello. Wang Meng also saluted. The two of you haven't answered my question. Li Zixuan glanced at the two of them and said indifferently, Yamacho, it's like this. When I returned home, I realized that studying at the academy was more fulfilling than wasting time at home, so I returned to the academy and planned to use the break to prepare for the upcoming lessons. Sun Zifan rolled his eyes and explained to Li Zixuan. Wang Meng nodded and echoed, Yamacho. I also came to the academy to prepare for my lessons. Do you think I will believe you? Li Zixuan glared at the two of them and said angrily, Nonsense, do you believe that I will ask Instructor Peng to discipline the two of you separately tomorrow? Huh? Sun Zifan was shocked and quickly waved his hands. No, no, no. Yamacho, I'm not used to staying at home, so I came back to the academy. After all, life at the academy is good, and I can eat, sleep, and poop well. Chon Yo, Bao Lin, and Qin Ke came back earlier than us and arrived at noon. He really wanted to say, I came to the academy to freeload food and toilet paper, but if he said so directly, he would definitely be beaten up again. Li Zixuan suddenly understood. He looked at Wang Meng and said, Wang Meng, I heard that you have a lot of free time in the morning. Wang Meng's eyebrows twitched and his legs trembled. He was about to explain when Li Zixuan said, All right, you guys can go now. Only then did he feel as if he had been granted amnesty. He dragged Sun Zifan and hurriedly fled. Chapter 768. Wang Meng, what did Yamacho say to you just now? Yanwang College. On the way back to the dorm, Sun Zifan nudged Wang Meng's arm and asked, Nothing, nothing. Wang Meng hurriedly waved his hand. He couldn't possibly say that he was mischievous because he didn't manage to buy toilet paper from Quirk Pavilion in the morning, could he? Since Li Zixuan didn't hold him responsible, The fewer people who knew about this, the better. TSK. It's fine if you don't want to say it, but you're still acting mysterious. Sigh. We're finally back at the college. Don't you think it's strange? We were tortured at the college a few days ago, but when we were back at home, we felt uncomfortable. Now that we're back at the college, everything is normal again. It's really baffling. Looking at the dormitory building not far ahead, Sun Zifen stroked his bald chin and sighed emotionally. What a pity! What a pity! Wang Meng glanced at Sun Zifen and finally said, "Maybe this is what Yamacho means when he says I'm cheap." Damn it! Wang Meng, how dare you scold me in a roundabout way? I'm going to beat the shit out of you today. Sun Zifen was furious and wanted to kick Wang Meng. Wang Meng naturally wouldn't just stand there and wait to be beaten. He took advantage of his long legs and ran out of Sun Zifen's attack range. Yo, Boss Wang, you're here too? Our Chang and city's god of wealth invited me. How could I not come? Even if I can't do business, it's still good to gain some wealth and build good karma. Haha, that's right. In just half a year, Lord Li was able to accumulate so much wealth without stealing or robbing. Compared to him, people like us who have been doing business all our lives are really ashamed. Early the next morning, a group of businessmen dressed in different clothes came to the entrance of Yanhuang College. At this time, the gate of the college was not open yet, but they stood in front of the gate and began to whisper to each other. Sigh. Perhaps this was what a genius was. At such a young age, not only is Lord Li doing well in business, but he is also very knowledgeable. He is comparable to many famous scholars. Otherwise, how could he become the Yamacho of Yanhuang College? Speaking of which, this Yanhuang College is really impressive. Haha. Of course, Yanhuang College's limelight was about to overshadow the directorate. Let's wait for next year's imperial examination to see how many of them can pass. Yo, isn't that Boss Liao? I heard that Boss Liao's good friend, Boss Feng, went out to sea with the imperial court's army. The two of them together have more than 30 big ships. Then Boss Feng is going to make a killing this time. I heard from Lord Li that the wealth at sea is endless. Hey, Boss Chow is here. The noisy crowd suddenly quietened down, and the merchants consciously opened up a path for Chow Wendong. He was dressed in plain clothes, but his noble aura could not be concealed. He walked to the front of the crowd with steady step. Good morning, my friends. Chow Wendong cupped his hands and smiled warmly at the people around him. Good morning, Boss Chow. Good morning, Boss Chow. The merchants around him quickly cupped their hands and greeted back politely. They had no choice. Chow Wendong was definitely one of the most important people who could get in touch with Li Zishuan. They had no choice but to be polite. We are still too early. I estimate that it will take another half an hour before the academy opens. Chow Wendong looked at the sky and pondered. It's fine. I can afford to wait. It's rare to have such an opportunity to listen to Lord Li's teachings. Let alone half an hour, even if it's a quarter of an hour, we are willing to wait. Yes. With that said, the merchants immediately said politely. Chow Wendong stroked his beard and smiled without saying a word. Half an hour later, the door of Yanhuang College opened on time. Under the lead of Mo Zhong, the merchants filed in and came to the conference room of Guanghua Building. Everyone, please wait here for a moment. The mountain will be here soon. Mo Zhong, who had already received Li Zishuan's instructions, said to the people who came in. Okay, thank you. The merchants did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. Instead, they were all full of smiles. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Li Zishuan finally walked in from outside. Sorry to keep you waiting. Li Zishuan cupped his hands in salute and said sincerely. You are too polite, Lord Ju. We just arrived and did not wait for long. Chow Wendong stood up and said with a bow. Yes, we just arrived. Besides, Lord Ju is very busy every day. It's normal for you to be delayed by something. Liao Shifan stood up and cupped his hands. The rest of the people quickly agreed. Li Zishuan gestured with his hands, then looked around at the people in the room, and said with a smile. Since you are here today, you must have heard that I want to raise money to build roads and develop Plum Village. Plum Village is close to the Ba River and the waterway is smooth. Moreover, the new workshop of Strange Interest Pavilion is also in Plum Village. Therefore, we have the most advanced workshop products here. We will not have to worry about sales no matter where we ship them. To the north of Plum Village is Yunshan and Yanhuang College. In the future, this place will become the holy land of learning for all the scholars in the world. It will bring countless talents to Great Tang. Moreover, with the promotion of academic knowledge, the workshop technology will be more advanced in the future. It will be able to produce more interesting and practical things. Correspondingly, this land will produce a huge amount of wealth. Currently, the only factor restricting the development of Plum Village and Yanhuang College is road. For everything that I have just mentioned, roads are the most basic and important. That's why I've invited all of you here today. I want all of you to participate in the future Feast of Wealth by investing in the company. I want to establish a Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce. In the future, only members of the Chamber of Commerce will be able to sell the goods produced by Strange Interest Pavilion. At the same time, they will be able to enjoy the protection of the Chamber of Commerce. As for the first batch of members to join the Chamber of Commerce, the amount of money donated today will determine the weight of their words in the Chamber of Commerce in the future. You have a total of 200,000 shares to subscribe. The final 6 people will be the first batch of members of the Chamber of Commerce. Then, let's not waste any more time. Let's start the voting. At first, Li Zishuan only wanted to accept 5 members. However, after seeing so many people today, he decided to add 1 more member. The rest of the people did not find it strange. They were just secretly glad. As soon as he finished speaking, the meeting room was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Although these people had heard about the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce from Chao Wenzhong, hearing Li Zishuan say it personally still made them feel a little strange. I will subscribe for 40,000 strings of cash. If there is any left in the end, I will take it all. Chao Wendong was the first to respond. Chapter 769. 40,000 strings of cash. Chao Wendong's words immediately shocked everyone. It should be all the merchants. After all, there were very few people present who could casually take out 40,000 strings of cash like him. Moreover, judging from Chao Wendong's behavior, 40,000 strings of cash was clearly not his limit. He was prepared to increase his investment at any time. Rich and overbearing, this is what it means to be rich and overbearing. Alright. Boss Chao is the first to buy 40,000 strings of cash. Who else is willing to invest? Li Zishuan's face was expressionless as he said calmly, I'm willing to buy 20,000 strings of cash. Liao Shifan gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice. He was not as rich as Chao Wendong. Mobilizing 20,000 strings of cash in a short period of time was already the limit of what he could do. Any more and he would have to sell some things. Liao Shifan felt that it was not worth it to put up all his money for a plum village with an unknown future. Wow! Is Boss Liao that rich too? Some of the merchants below were discussing in a low voice. I'm willing to buy 10,000 strings of cash. I'm also willing to buy 10,000 strings of cash. I'm willing to buy 8,000 strings of cash. Some people might have the same thoughts as Liao Shifan and felt that it was not worth it to put up all their money for a plum village with an unknown future. Some people did not have much money at all. Anyway, after Liao Shifan, all the bids hovered around 10,000 strings of cash. Li Zishuan, who was sitting at the head of the table, frowned and looked a little unhappy. Chao Wendong, on the other hand, was secretly delighted. The fewer people who bought, the more authority he would have in the Chamber of Commerce. Lordly, His Highness the Crown Prince sent me to pass on a message. The East Palace is willing to buy 30,000 strings of cash. At this moment, a scholar came in and bowed to Li Zishuan. Everyone was shocked. No one suspected that the scholar was deliberately lying because his clothes had the East Palace logo. Moreover, given the relationship between Li Zishuan and Crown Prince Li Chengqian, it was very likely that this was true. This way, the situation was completely different. Lord Zhu, I'm willing to add 20,000 strings of cash for a total of 40,000 strings of cash. Liao Shifan reacted immediately and shouted at the top of his lungs when he heard Eastern Palace advisor's words. Although his own funds were limited, if he added in his good friend Feng Zhihua, he would be able to buy 40,000 strings of cash. Most importantly, the Crown Prince's sudden disruption made him feel optimistic about the future of Plum Village. If he didn't make the first move to gain the upper hand, he might not even be able to drink soup in the future. Lord Zhu, my young master said that the Wang family of Taiyuan is willing to pay 100,000 strings of cash. Boom! Liao Shifan had suddenly increased the East Palace's 30,000 strings of cash to 40,000 strings of cash. Now, the Wang family of Taiyuan had directly offered 100,000 strings of cash. These offers made everyone's blood pressure soar. It was extremely exciting. Your young master is Wang Renbiao? Li Zishuan looked at the middle-aged man who said he would give 100,000 strings of silver and asked in a deep voice. The middle-aged man bowed and replied, Yes, Lord Zhu. Li Zishuan raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect the Wang family to join in after hearing the news. He was about to say something when he heard a series of offers from below. Lord Zhu, I'll add 40,000 strings of cash for a total of 80,000 strings of cash. Chao Wendong smelled a hint of danger and immediately began to raise the price. Lord Zhu, I'm willing to pay 40,000 strings of cash. Lord Zhu, I'm willing to pay 45,000 strings of cash. Lord Zhu, a strange scene appeared. Following the final bid of 45,000 strings of cash, the conference room suddenly fell silent. The businessmen who didn't make it in time all swallowed the words that were about to come out of their mouth. They looked at each other in frustration, but no one dared to make a rash offer. It wasn't that they couldn't afford a higher price, but because Li Chengqian had offered 30,000 strings of cash. There were already 5 people who had offered more than 30,000 strings of cash. If the remaining people offered a price higher than 30,000 strings of cash, wouldn't they squeeze Crown Prince Li Chengqian out of the picture? They wouldn't dare even if they had 10 guts. People who had been in the business world for many years had to have this level of EQ and eyesight. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the qualifications to sit here and bid. What's wrong? No one's bidding anymore? Li Zishuan asked curiously. Previously, it was still lively, but now these people suddenly became silent. I'm not bidding anymore. I'm not bidding anymore. Most of the businessmen forced a smile on their faces as they chuckled. Chao Wendong stroked his beard and was very satisfied with the situation. The businessman surnamed Lin, who made the final bid of 45,000 strings of cash, had a flushed face. He couldn't hide his smug expression. All right. Since no one's bidding, I'll announce the results. Li Zishuan picked up the paper in front of him and said in a deep voice, The first batch of members of the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce are Wang Renbiao, Chao Wendong, Lin Wenyuan, Liao Shifan, Zhang Jingyang, and His Highness the Crown Prince. The subscription limit is 100,000 strings of cash, 80,000 strings of cash, 45,000 strings of cash, 40,000 strings of cash, 30,000 strings of cash, for a total of 335,000 strings of cash, which exceeds the limit by 135,000 strings of cash. The excess will be temporarily used as backup funds for the construction of the road. After the roads are repaired, the unused money will be returned to you according to the proportion of your subscription. Does anyone have any objections? If not, then today's auction is over. I have no objections. I have no objections either. I have no objections. Those who were on the list naturally didn't have any objections. Those who were not on the list, although unwilling, didn't dare to openly object. They could only blame themselves for being slow to react. Lord Jew, I wonder if we'll have the chance to become a member of the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce in the future? A greasy middle-aged man with a full beard stood up and cupped his hands towards Li Zixuan. The other businessmen immediately looked at Li Zixuan with hopeful eyes. Of course. But the members of the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce are valued by quality, not quantity. It'll only get harder and harder to join in the future. Of course, friends who haven't joined the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce can choose to work with members of the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce. I believe it'll be very profitable, Li Zixuan said calmly. I understand now. The greasy middle-aged man bowed with a determined look. Good. Then that's all for today. Let's welcome the first batch of members of the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce. Li Zixuan stood up and clapped his hands with a smile. Everyone knew that he was sending them off and hurriedly stood up. Li Zixuan continued seriously. But no one is to spread the news of what happened here just now, especially news related to the Crown Prince. If the news is leaked, I'll investigate one by one. If I find out who it is, don't even think about having a foothold in the Tang Dynasty in the future. Do you all understand? Don't worry, Lord Zhu. We know the severity of the matter. Chao Wendong led the crowd in response. That's good. Meeting adjourned. Li Zixuan nodded and waved his hand. Chapter 770. Little Xian, come with me. The first batch of shares of the Yin Huang Chamber of Commerce had been oversubscribed. Li Zixuan was in a good mood. Of course, whether it was Li Qingqian's interference or Wang Renbiao's sudden involvement, they were all outside of his expectations. In the corridor outside the meeting room, Li Zixuan bumped into Li Gang. Just as he was about to greet him, he heard the old man say in a low voice, "Oh, good." Li Zixuan felt that the old man was in a bad mood. He was a little confused. The two of them came to Li Gang's office. Li Gang closed the door and looked at Li Zixuan. "Little Xian, you were the one who called those merchants over, right?" Li Zixuan seemed to understand something. He paused and nodded. "Yes." Li Gang pointed at Li Zixuan and said bitterly, "You're stupid, stupid. I know that you gathered them to discuss something. I don't have any prejudice against merchants, but Yanhuang College is an important place for learning. How can you let this place be tainted with the stench of money? This is an insult to the saints, an insult to the educated people." Li Zixuan said disapprovingly, Mister, you're wrong. First of all, today is the school's holiday. I gathered all the merchants here to discuss the future development of Plum Village. There's nothing wrong with that. Secondly, I founded Yanhuang College mainly to be practical, not to pretend to be virtuous. What do you mean by the stench of money? Mister, you're an enlightened person. Why are you associated with the commoners? If not for the stench of money that scholars talk about, how could Yanhuang College develop to such a scale in such a short time? How could Plum Village develop so quickly? Li Gang was so angry that his beard blew and his eyes widened. Are you saying that I'm vulgar? Short-sighted? Pretending to be virtuous? Li Zixuan quickly waved his hand and said, Absolutely not. Sir, please don't misunderstand. I just want you to know that academics and money don't conflict in many cases. In fact, they even complement each other. For example, money can provide a good learning environment and promote the rapid development of academics. Academics can also promote technological innovation and earn more benefits. You also know that not all of the students trained by Yanhuang College will become officials in the future. Li Gang furrowed his brows and remained silent. He had taught and educated people all his life, and had written books to establish a theory. How could he be as sharp-tongued as Li Zixuan, who had lived 2 lives. Seeing this, Li Zishuan cupped his hands towards Li Gang and said, "Sir, if there is nothing else, then I will take my leave." Then, seeing that Li Gang was still deep in thought, he left. "Big brother, you're really fast and you're really generous. I was still hesitating on whether to join, but you've already invested 30,000 strings of cash in it." In dorm 001, Li Tai saw that everyone else had left and whispered to Li Chengqian. Li Chengqian smiled and said, "Qinke, what's there to hesitate about? In Chang'an City, in terms of earning money, if Xiaoxian is ranked second, who dares to be ranked first? Whenever he needs help, it's our chance. Besides, this 30,000 strings of cash was earned for me by Xiaoxian. Even if I lose everything, I have nothing to lose. Don't you think so?" Big brother is wise. When Li Tai heard this, he gave a thumbs up and praised. Then, the little fatty chuckled and said somewhat embarrassedly, "Big brother, I'm sure it will be difficult for you to take out so much money at once, right? It just so happens that I have some spare cash here, what do you think?" Li Chengqian found it funny and said, "I knew you would say that, Qinke. Don't worry, you have a share. Not only you, but Chang'e also has a share. The 3 of us will each get 10,000 strings of cash." Li Tai was overjoyed and said, "Hee hee. Thank you, big brother." Azure Dragon District, Wang Family Residence. "Young master, Butler Gong is back. He has done what you asked him to do. We already have 100,000 strings of cash in the flaming yellow chamber of commerce." In the backyard, Leng Yuyao leisurely walked over to Wang Rinbiao's side and bowed slightly as she spoke. Wang Rinbiao, who was sitting in the pavilion playing chess by himself, paused and said softly, I got it." Leng Yuyao was speechless. 100,000 strings of cash was definitely not a drop in the bucket for the Wang family. It was a considerable amount of wealth. But now Wang Rinbiao had given it away with just a few words, and all he got in return was those illusory shares and the unknown future of the Plum Village. She found it hard to understand what her young master was thinking. She also found it hard to understand why the elders and head of the family would agree to such a foolish transaction. Yao what's wrong?" After a long while, Wang Rinbiao saw that Leng Yuyao was still standing beside him with a conflicted expression on her face. He couldn't help but ask. "Nothing, nothing." Leng Yuyao came back to her senses and quickly shook her head. "Hee, Yao must be wondering why I would use 100,000 strings of cash in this flaming yellow chamber of commerce?" Wang Rinbiao stared at Leng Yuyao for a long while, then shook his head and laughed. Young master's every move must have a deeper meaning. Yuyao doesn't dare to make wild guesses. Leng Yuyao bowed. Wang Rinbiao smiled, then stood up and took the initiative to explain. Actually, it's not for anything else. Just the golden signboard of Li Zishuan alone is worth a gamble. Otherwise, why would there be so many people rushing over to buy shares? Obviously, I'm not the only one who thinks highly of Li Zishuan. Besides, I'm also very optimistic about the future of Yanwang College and the Plum Village. 100,000 strings of cash may be a lot, but the profits it will bring to the Wang family in the future will also be considerable. Leng Yuyao nodded thoughtfully, but didn't reply. Wang Renbiao suddenly asked, Yao have the people that third uncle sent out to the sea to gather information returned? Leng Yuyao replied, Young master, third master has followed the orders of the head of the family and sent all the spare ships in the family to the Southeast Sea to gather information about the Imperial Court fleet. They will be back soon, but according to third master, there will definitely be news within these 2 days. Wang Renbiao nodded and said, Good, inform me immediately when there's news. Yes, young master. Yanwang College. After raising more than 300,000 strings of cash, Li Zishuan could be said to be full of confidence. After he left Li Gang's place, he went straight to Yan Xiaoning, the former chief engineer of the college. Speaking of which, Yan Xiaoning was now hanging out with Mo Lingwei every day, researching astronomical telescope. He was so busy that he didn't even have time to care about the remaining projects of the college. Many times, when the craftsmen had something to do, they would come to him personally. He just didn't know if this guy was doing it for official business, or to make it easier for him to pick up girls. Li Zishuan thought maliciously as he walked along the corridor. Chapter 771. Shouting, "How much longer do we need to finish the rest of the construction?" Arriving at the 9th floor of Yanwang College's Guanghua building, he found Yan Xiaoning scribbling on a piece of paper. However, he didn't see Mo Lingwei. Li Zishuan didn't have the time to care about this and went straight to the point. "Oh, little Xian, you're here." Yan Xiaoning stopped what he was doing and stood up. He thought for a while and said, "According to the original plan of the college, we still have about 3 buildings left. A total of more than 100 houses that haven't been completed yet. If the construction team goes all out, it'll take about half a month to finish." "What's wrong, little Xian? Why are you suddenly asking about this? Did something happen?" Li Zishuan sat on the chair beside him and sighed. He replied, "Something did happen. Xiaoning, I'm planning to send some of the craftsmen to help me build the road." Yan Xiaoning didn't know much about the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce. He asked curiously, "Build the road? Little Xian, what kind of road are you repairing now?" "The road from Plum Village to Chang'an. Now, the workshop and the academy are both in Plum Village. Have you forgotten how crowded the roads were when the academy started school and how difficult it was for carriages and horses to pass? Moreover, with the current road, it'll take at least 2 hours to get from the workshop to Chang'an. It's as slow as a turtle. If this road isn't built, Yanwang College and Plum Village won't be able to develop much in the future," Li Zishuan explained seriously. Yan Xiaoning was speechless. He felt that Li Zishuan was making a mountain out of a molehill. However, since Li Zishuan looked so confident, he must have come prepared. Yan Xiaoning could only agree. Okay. Then tell me how you're going to build it. How many people do you need?" Li Zishuan was prepared for this question. He replied, "I'm planning to build a cement road. The width of the road should be more than 6 feet. I need at least 1/3 of the craftsmen." "Damn, are you crazy?" After Yan Xiaoning heard this, he shouted, "If you want to build a road, then build a road. Why do you have to build a cement road? Is the cement produced by the workshop enough for you to build such a long road? Also, if you ask for so many craftsmen, the progress of the academy's construction will definitely be greatly affected. Have you considered this?" Li Zishuan answered his questions one by one. The cement output of the workshop has gradually caught up. Also, the students of Yanwang College are now undergoing military training. It doesn't make any difference if the college is completed a few days earlier or later. In comparison, road repair is more important. Seeing Li Zishuan's attitude, Yan Xiaoning knew that he had no choice but to fix this road. He spread his hands and said, "All right. You have the final say. I'll fix it if you say so." "When do we start construction?" "Within 3 days. I'll have at least 300,000 strings of cash in 3 days. I can guarantee that we won't have to worry about anything in the future." Yan Xiaoning thought that Li Zishuan was going to pay 300,000 strings of cash. He was a little surprised. He didn't know how much money his good brother had, but it wasn't appropriate for him to ask this kind of question. He could only reply, "All right. I'll arrange a group of craftsmen in advance." Happy days were always so short, at least for the students of Yanwang College. The 2-day weekend passed in the blink of an eye, and they ushered in a new week of military training. Even if they were very unwilling, they could only obediently comply with the old-fashioned chief instructor Qin Qiong and the strict system of the academy. At the same time, they hoped that the next holiday would come soon. "Yamacho, there's a person called Wang Renbiao outside who wants to see you." The next morning, Li Zishuan was strolling on the academy's field and checking on the students' morning run. He saw Emo Zhong trotting over from afar and cupping his fist. Wang Renbiao? Li Zishuan's heart skipped a beat and he hurriedly said, "Take me there." Emo Zhong saw that Li Zishuan was so concerned about Wang Renbiao that he actually wanted to personally greet him. He knew that it might be important, so he quickly responded and led Li Zishuan to the academy's gate. "Cousin Rin, long time no see. How are you doing?" Li Zishuan smiled and greeted the indifferent Wang Renbiao and the frosty Ling Yuyao outside the academy's gate. I'm fine. Xiao Xian, I'm here today to tell you something. I've found the traces of the Imperial Court's fleet." Wang Renbiao cupped his fist and said. Ling Yuyao on the side pouted and snorted. She was obviously angry that her young master came all the way here to deliver the news but was rejected at the door. Li Zishuan was startled at first, but then he smiled and said to Emo Zhong, "Young Master Wang is an honored guest. You don't need to report when you come to the academy in the future. You can come in directly, understand?" "Understood, Yamacho." Emo Zhong carefully glanced at Wang Renbiao, trying to remember his appearance thoroughly. Ling Yuyao's face looked better. "Renbiao, let's talk inside." Li Zishuan looked at Wang Renbiao and said, "Okay." The three of them came to Li Zishuan's office. Ling Yuyao temporarily acted as a maid and poured a glass of water for each of them. Li Zishuan hurriedly asked, "Renbiao, you said that you've inquired about the Imperial Court's fleet. Quickly tell me, how are they now? Did they encounter any accidents?" Wang Renbiao's face turned serious and he replied, "Accidents? They really did encounter a group of pirates in the Southeast Sea." Li Zishuan's heart skipped a beat. He didn't expect that the fleet would really encounter an accident, so he hurriedly asked, "And then? Were there any casualties among the crew? Where are they now?" Wang Renbiao replied, "I just received the news this morning. It said that the fleet docked on an unknown island that night and was ambushed by a group of pirates. Dozens of crew members and defenders were killed. The commandery Prince Hejian was furious. After chasing the pirates without success, he mobilized the army to go to Neon and ask the king of Neon for an explanation, because according to the investigation, the pirates were from Neon." "His Highness went to Neon?" Li Zishuan widened his eyes and said worriedly, "The Neon are cunning and cunning. His Highness went deep with a large number of supplies alone. It's inevitable that some thieves would want to harm him. Renbiao, how is the situation over there now?" Wang Renbiao smiled and said, "Don't worry, Xiao Xian. The commandery Prince Hejian took the elite troops to sea this time. Even if the Neon people were audacious, they wouldn't be able to do anything. The ones who should be worried are not us, but the Neon people. According to the latest news, the commandery Prince Hejian has already stirred up half of the world over there." Chapter 772. According to Renbiao's words, you have more information about Neon. Tell me about it. In the headmaster's office, Li Zishuan saw Wang Renbiao's confident expression. He guessed that Wang Renbiao must have more information, so he asked. Wang Renbiao nodded and slowly said, "It's a long story. I'll pick out some important things to tell you first. I'm sure it won't be long before the Imperial Court receives more detailed information. At that time, you'll be able to understand the situation clearly." Seeing that Li Zishuan had no objection, Wang Renbiao began to tell. After the Imperial Court's army was ambushed that day, Commandery Prince Hejian failed to find the pirates. The next day, he led the army to Neon. Although there were defenders in Neon, they were weak compared with our Tang army. Commandery Prince Hejian left 8,000 soldiers to guard the ship. He led 12,000 soldiers and arrived at the capital of Neon at dusk that day. It was said that the Imperial Court of Neon was divided into two groups at that time. One was in favor of war, while the other was in favor of peace. The Queen of Neon finally decided to make peace with Commandery Prince Hejian. She sent a messenger out of the city to contact Commandery Prince Hejian and express her goodwill. She also invited Commandery Prince Hejian to the city as a guest. Commandery Prince Hejian was brave. He only took one master with him and entered the city alone. Before leaving, he told the generals in the army that if they didn't return before dawn, they would be ready to attack the city. Who would have thought that the two of them would be gone for a full 6 hours? It was only in the middle of the night that the two of them returned from the city. However, when they left, there were only 2 of them. When they returned, there were more than 10 of them. All of them were assassins. The army outside the city knew that Commandery Prince Hejian had been attacked by assassins in the city. They all shouted that they would kill their way into the city to avenge Commandery Prince Hejian. Commandery Prince Hejian didn't attack the city. He ordered people to interrogate the assassins and investigate their identities. By chance, a master assassin who was captured alive confessed that he was a hanger-on of the Suo family. Commandery Prince Hejian was furious. He sent people into the city to ask the king of Pushgu to give him an explanation. Otherwise, he would personally enter the city to kill the Suo family. The king of Tuigu Kingdom severely reprimanded the mastermind of the assassination, Suo Xiayi, and went to see Hejian Commandery Prince in person, hoping that the Neon Kingdom could deal with the Suo family themselves. Hejian Commandery Prince didn't agree. He told the king that there were only 2 ways to go. Either the imperial court of the Wei nation exterminated the Suo family, or he personally led the army into the city and exterminated the Suo family. Seeing this, Commandery Prince Hejian immediately ordered the army to enter the city. Surprisingly, the queen didn't order the guards on the city wall to stop the army. The 12,000 soldiers entered the capital of Wei nation without any hindrance. A few hours later, the hundreds of people in the Suo family and the thousands of warriors they raised were all killed. For a moment, the capital of Faenio was filled with blood. One of the 3 major forces of the imperial court of the Neon Kingdom disappeared overnight. According to reliable sources, Hejian Commandery Prince will return to the imperial court with a large amount of brass and silver sent by the Neon Kingdom as an apology. Moreover, the Neon Kingdom will work together to catch the pirate leader who attacked the imperial court last time. After he is caught, the descendant of Crown Prince Shengde will personally escort him to Chang'an. Even if it was just a simple story, Wang Renbiao talked for half an hour. It was really because Li Xiaogong and the others had experienced too much at sea. After hearing this, Li Zixuan opened his eyes wide and was stunned speechless. He really didn't expect that Li Xiaogong would have such an experience in Wei nation. He also didn't expect that the Neon Kingdom could be defeated with only 12,000 soldiers of the Tang Empire. He couldn't blame him. The earliest he knew about the Neon Kingdom was that they were pirates in the Middle and Late Ming Dynasty. At that time, several pirates could chase thousands of soldiers of the Ming Dynasty. He didn't expect that in the Tang Dynasty, the strength of China and the Neon Kingdom would be opposite. However, he was still very happy to see the Neon Kingdom was unlucky. In his last life, he was a genuine angry youth. This kind of national hatred was engraved in his bones and would not disappear because of time travel. Now, the Neon Kingdom was kneeling in front of the army of the Tang Empire. They not only lost their power but also paid compensation. It was so similar to the Braid Dynasty thousands of years later. It was so satisfying to think about it. Haha, good. Good fight. The Neon Kingdom was so bold that they dared to assassinate the prince of the Tang Empire. If we don't teach them a lesson, they won't know what a great country is. Wang Renbiao's words contained a lot of information. Although Li Zixuan didn't know much about Empress Gu, Crown Prince Shengde, the Suo family, and the mountain-back elder brother and so on, he could roughly understand the story. He didn't want to know about the internal affairs of the Neon Kingdom. He only needed to know that Li Xiaogong had pressed the Neon Kingdom to the ground and rubbed the Neon Kingdom's imperial court on the ground. This was a piece of good news that made people excited, so he couldn't help but laugh. Hearing this, Wang Renbiao shook his head and said, Xiao Xian, Prince Hejian won the battle. Of course, it's worth being happy, but things are far from as simple as you think. After His Highness returns to the imperial court this time, I'm afraid that he will be impeached by many ministers. Li Zishuan felt strange and asked, Why is that? Wang Renbiao slowly opened his mouth and explained, Although the general is away from the imperial court and does not obey the emperor's orders, His Highness started the war with the Neon Kingdom without the emperor's permission. This will definitely cause chaos and panic in other small countries around the country. It will also damage the image of the Tang Empire. Some ministers will impeach Prince Hejian because of this. Li Zishuan glared and said angrily, I'll see who dares to do that. The Neon Kingdom disrespected Tang Empire. If we don't punish them, how will Tang Empire's reputation be? Prince Hejian showed our country's prestige in the Neon Kingdom, which is absolutely meritorious. When the time comes, I, Li Zishuan, will be the first to disagree with anyone who uses this fallacious argument to attack Prince Hejian. Wang Renbiao sighed and said, Although this is the truth, there is no shortage of pedantic people everywhere. Xiao Xian, you'd better take it easy. Don't rashly make too many enemies. In fact, as long as His Majesty doesn't pursue this matter, His Highness will definitely be fine. He didn't want Li Zishuan to offend too many people because of his impulsive actions. Li Zishuan shook his head and didn't say anything. After a while, he was suddenly surprised and asked, Renbiao, you said that the pirates suddenly attacked the fleet that night and killed dozens of civilians and soldiers. Do you know if Meng Yuliang was among those who died? He was so focused on listening to Li Xiaogong's killing that he almost forgot that his original intention of asking Wang Renbiao to help him investigate the fleet was to find out if Meng Yuliang's life was in danger under Meng Wenhao's request. Chapter 773. Wang Renbiao was greatly surprised to hear Li Zishuan specifically ask about the situation of a nobody. He thought for a moment and shook his head. I don't know about that. Li Zishuan made an O sound. Although he was somewhat disappointed, he also expressed his understanding. After all, there were over 1,000 ships accompanying the imperial army on their journey south, and over 10,000 commoners. It was truly difficult for Wang Renbiao to pay attention to an ordinary commoner whose name was unknown. Young master, I heard from the people sent by Third Master that there was a merchant named Feng Jihua in the pirate attack on the imperial fleet. Almost all the crew members on his ship were killed, but one of the people was lucky enough to be saved by a master at the critical moment of life and death. This person seemed to be called Meng Yuliang, and that master was the one who accompanied Commandery Prince Hejian into the capital of Neon. At this moment, Leng Yuyao, who was standing behind Wang Renbiao, suddenly said. Li Zishuan's eyes lit up. He suddenly stood up and said excitedly, Miss Leng, is what you said true? Leng Yuyao rolled her eyes and said angrily, Why would I lie to you for no reason? Li Zishuan just asked subconsciously. In fact, he didn't have any doubts. Seeing Leng Yuyao's expression, he touched his nose embarrassedly and didn't know what to say. Wang Renbiao hurriedly reprimanded in a low voice, Yao don't be rude. Leng Yuyao looked gloomy and didn't say anything. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, It's okay as long as Meng Yuliang's life is not in danger. Li Zishuan had long been used to Leng Yuyao's indifferent temperament. Moreover, compared to before, Leng Yuyao's attitude towards him was much better. Wang Renbiao couldn't help but ask, Xiao Xian, why are you so concerned about Meng Yuliang? Li Zishuan said with a smile, Meng Yuliang is the father of one of my students. My student is worried about his father's safety, so he specially asked me to help him inquire about the news. Oh, I see. Wang Renbiao came to a sudden realization. Leng Yuyao, who was at the side, also looked at Li Zishuan. She probably didn't expect that a busy person like Li Zishuan would go through so much trouble for an ordinary student. Wenhao, come with me for a moment. After sending Wang Renbiao off, Li Zixuan came to the field and found Meng Wenhao, who was training. Meng Wenhao was shocked and had a bad premonition in his heart. Yes, Yamacho. The two of them came to the shade of a tree beside the field. Li Zixuan looked at Meng Wenhao and went straight to the point. Wenhao, I've already heard news about your father. When Meng Wenhao heard this, his heart was in his throat. He took a few deep breaths and said, Yamacho, how is my father? Please tell me. This student is very grateful. Li Zixuan paused and said, I've received news that not long ago, the Imperial Court's fleet was attacked by pirates in the Southeast Sea area. Almost all the crew members on Feng Jihua's merchant ship were killed. When Meng Wenhao heard this, his small face suddenly turned pale. He staggered back 2 steps and murmured, What? Sir? Sir, are you saying that my father was killed by pirates? The reason why he said this was because he knew that his father's boss was Feng Jihua. When Li Zixuan saw this, he said, I haven't finished yet. Why are you in such a hurry? Although almost all of Feng Jihua's crew members were killed, your father was saved by an expert at the critical moment. Together with Feng Jihua, they both survived. Although he was injured, his life is not in danger. Wenhao, you don't have to worry. Hearing this, Meng Wenhao's pale face gradually regained a trace of color. He was stunned for a long time before he solemnly bowed to Li Zixuan and said, Thank you, Yamacho, for taking care of this student's affairs. This student is very grateful. Li Zixuan waved his hand with a smile and said carelessly, Haha. Now that you know the news of your father's safety, you must not continue to let your imagination run wild and affect your mentality. You don't have to thank me. Studying in the academy is the best way to repay me. Go quickly and adjust your mentality as soon as possible. Meng Wenhao quickly responded, Yes, Yamacho. Wang Renbiao's guess was right. The next day, the imperial court had already received the news of Li Xiaogong's massacre in Neon. After receiving the report, Li Er raised his eyebrows and was shocked. Neon? One Piece? Assassination? This little Neon is really daring. It's getting more and more outrageous. I remember that in the previous dynasty, the Neon envoy actually called himself the Emperor in the letter of credence that he submitted to Emperor Yang. Now it seems that the Neon people are indeed beginning to be arrogant. They actually dare to provoke the tiger's whiskers of the Tang Empire. However, Xiaogong's actions will inevitably be criticized. Forget it, let's wait for him to come back. As the Emperor, Li Er, of course, knew that if this report was made public in the imperial court, it would definitely cause a great uproar. Therefore, he chose to keep the report and temporarily suppress the matter. When Li Xiaogong returned to the imperial court, he would solve it together. In fact, according to the original history of Neon, after the death of Emperor Kogo in 628, the second year of Jingguan, there was a struggle for the succession of the throne in the Neon imperial court. The emperor's last words were that the son of Prince Shengda, the grandson of Suwamatsi, would succeed the throne. However, Suwamatsi violated the last words and supported Prince Tamura, the grandson of Emperor Minda, the son of Emperor Yasaka's eldest brother, as the emperor, who later became Emperor Shuming. After Emperor Shuming ascended the throne, he sent the first envoy to the Tang Empire the next year. During his 12 years on the throne, the Suwamatsi family's strength had developed greatly, and the Suwamatsi family had reached its peak. But now, Li Xiaogong led troops to kill the entire Suwamatsi family. The Suwamatsi family, which controlled the political situation of the 6 emperors, suddenly disappeared. Therefore, the heir to the Neon imperial throne became undisputed. It was the son of Prince Shengda, the eldest brother of Brother Shengda. This man, who was originally the spare tire of the emperor in history, was really going to be the emperor now. Who should he thank the most? Li Xiaogong? That's not it. The person he should thank the most was Li Zixuan. If it weren't for Li Zixuan, the transmigrator, the Tang Empire wouldn't have sent such a large fleet to the south to trade in the first year of Jingguan, and it would be even more impossible for the Tang army to enter the Neon territory. The Suwamatsi family, which was powerful in Neon, naturally wouldn't have been accidentally destroyed, and the eldest brother of Brother Shingda could only continue to be the spare tire. Li Zixuan never dreamed that he, an otaku who had transmigrated from the modern world, would actually change the Neon court in this way. He also never thought that the butterfly wings of his transmigrator had been flapped and gradually affected the world situation from here. This was the so-called butterfly effect. Chapter 774. 3 days later, the first batch of funds raised by the Yen Huang Chamber of Commerce, 335,000 strings of cash, was all in the account. Looking at the room full of copper coins, Li Zixuan sighed in his heart. The times are too backward. A mere 300,000 strings of cash is not enough to fit a room, and the servants in the house have to count the money for half a day. How is it like the modern era, where a finger lightly taps on the phone, whether it is 300,000 or 30 million, it is all in an instant? At the very least, the cash of the modern era is much easier to count than the copper coins of this era. 10,000 for a stack, 30 million for a box. Unlike now, 300,000 strings of cash is enough to fill an entire room. Li Zixuan had actually ridiculed the currency of this era many times in his heart. Think about it, if you want to buy a horse in Shi City, you have to count at least 10 strings of cash, right? In the ancient era, coins were usually around 3 to 4 kilograms, and 10 strings of cash was around 40 to 50 kilograms. The weight of the copper coins used to buy a horse was almost equivalent to the weight of a person. One could imagine how inconvenient it was to buy a large amount of money in this era. Paper money, we have to develop paper money in the future. Li Zixuan sighed. Modern online payments were still too far away from the technological level of the Tang Dynasty, but paper money was still something to look forward to. In fact, before the Tang Dynasty, there were already signs of paper money. According to historical records, because of the long war with the Xiongnu during the Han Dynasty, the treasury was empty. In order to solve the financial problem, while the 3 baht and platinum coins, alloy coins made of silver and tin, were minted, the white deerskin coins were also issued. The so-called white deerskin coins were made of white deerskin from the palace gardens. Each piece was a square foot long and the edges were painted. Each piece was set at 400,000 strings of cash. Because its value far exceeded the value of the coins, the white deerskin coins were only used as tributes between the nobles, and were not used in circulation. Therefore, they were not real paper money, and could only be said to be the precursor of paper money. In the middle of the Tang Dynasty, there was a type of currency called flying money. At that time, when merchants went out to do business, it was inconvenient to bring a large amount of copper coins with them. First, they went to the government office to get a certificate, which recorded the place and the amount of coins. Then, they took the certificate to other places to withdraw money to buy goods. This certificate was called flying money. Flying money was actually just a kind of currency exchange business. It did not enter into circulation itself, and did not exercise the function of currency. Therefore, it was not a real paper currency. During the Northern Song Dynasty, the jiaozi of Sichuan and Chengdu was the beginning of paper money. It was not a coincidence that paper money did not appear in the Tang Dynasty or earlier dynasties but in the Northern Song Dynasty. It was an inevitable product of social, political, and economic development. In the Song Dynasty, the development of the commodity economy was very rapid, and the circulation of goods required more money. At that time, there was a shortage of copper coins, which could not meet the demand of circulation. At that time, iron coins were commonly used in the Sichuan region. The value of iron coins was low and heavy, so it was extremely inconvenient to use them. 1 copper coin was equivalent to 10 iron coins. For every 1,000 iron coins, the big ones weighed 25 caddies, and the medium ones weighed 13 caddies. Buying a bolt of cloth would cost 20,000 iron coins. It weighed about 500 caddies and had to be carried on a carriage. Therefore, objectively speaking, there was a need for a lighter currency. This was also the main reason why paper money first appeared in Sichuan. Moreover, although the northern Song dynasty was a highly centralized feudal autocratic country, the national currency was not unified. There were several currency areas, each of which governed their own affairs and did not use the same currency. At that time there were 13 roads, administrative units of the Song dynasty, that used copper coins and 4 roads that used iron coins. Shaanxi and Hudong used both copper and iron coins. Each currency area strictly prohibited the outflow of money. Using paper money could prevent the outflow of copper and iron coins. In addition, the Song dynasty government was often attacked by Liao, Xia, and Jin. The military and reparations expenses were very high, so they also needed to issue paper money to make up for the financial deficit. Under all these reasons, the paper money, jiaozi, was created. According to the original history, it was impossible for paper money to appear in the Tang dynasty. But now, as a modern person, he had transmigrated and became a rich second generation. Therefore, it was necessary for him to do something. After letting his imagination run wild for a while, Li Zixuan went to look for Yan Xiaoning directly. As for paper money, he would do it in the future, but definitely not now. It required time and talents in the related field. After arriving at the academy, Li Zixuan went directly to Yan Xiaoning's office. "Xiaoning, the money for the road construction is all here. Quickly arrange for people to start work." Li Zixuan pushed the door open and saw that Yan Xiaoning was still alone. He went straight to the point. Yan Xiaoning stood up and said in surprise, "The money is here so quickly? Okay, I've already arranged everything. Since it's like this, let's start work today." "How's the preparation of the cement at the factory?" Li Zixuan replied, "There's no problem at the workshop. The production of cement will definitely be enough." Ever since the workshop of the Strange Taste Pavilion moved the main production to Plum Village, the production of carriages, scooters, glass, cement, and books had gradually increased. Now, the supply of goods at the Strange Taste Pavilion had been greatly improved. It was rare for people to fight for goods like before, but the goods were sold out in an instant. This was also the purpose of Li Zixuan's expansion of the workshop. Although hunger marketing could motivate people to buy goods in a short period of time, it would only make people hate it after a long time. After all, he had experienced the torture of hunger marketing in his previous life. Yan Xiaoning nodded and said, "That's good." Li Zixuan looked around and asked with a smile, "Where's your family's ink girl?" "She's been at the workshop recently. She asked the workshop's master to help her make lenses." Yan Xiaoning subconsciously replied, but he immediately realized that Li Zixuan's words were wrong. He hurriedly scolded, "F***ck, what do you mean by our family's ink girl? Brat, don't talk nonsense and ruin Miss Wei Er's reputation. When the time comes, Mr. Mo will definitely find you to settle accounts." Li Zixuan laughed and turned around to leave. He left a sentence in the air, "Haha, I'm afraid Mr. Mo will come after you, not me. Who asked you to steal his daughter's heart?" Yan Xiaoning's ears turned red. He chased after Li Zixuan and wanted to argue with Li Zixuan, but there was no trace of him outside. He could only spit and curse under his breath. Why is this brat always thinking about that kind of stuff all day long? He's a Yamacho from Yanhuang College. He doesn't have any Yamacho manners at all. He's a teacher in vain. Marriage? What marriage? It's so good to be alone and free. Chapter 775. Oh, isn't this 7th Master Han? Where are you going, old man? At noon, Li Zixuan arrived at the Han village. At the entrance of the village, he met 7th Master Han, who was carrying a hoe and walking into the village. 7th Master Han was considered a native of the Han village. During the last years of the Sui Dynasty and the Wuda era, 7th Master Han was the village chief of the Han village. However, due to his old age, he retired from the position. Even so, he still had a high reputation in the Han village. "Hey, it's young master. I just came back from the fields. Young master, you have to come to my house for a meal today. To tell you the truth, I have also brewed some wine. Young master, quickly go and have a taste." 7th Master Han heard the voice and quickly stopped in his tracks. He turned around and smiled at Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan quickly waved his hand and said, No, I'm here to look for my father-in-law. I'll visit your hometown another day." "Oh right, 7th Master. This year's harvest wasn't good. Is your family or the other farmers facing any difficulties? If so, I'll tell Butler Wang that the Han village won't collect rent this year." Hey. You can't, young master." Grandfather Han the 7th hurriedly tried to dissuade him. "Young master, although the farm's harvest this year isn't good, the farmers in the farm have made a lot of money by selling the mountain fruits. Moreover, you also set up a chicken farm to reduce the burden. Most people actually only need to pay less than 20% of the rent. Everyone can afford it. Moreover, the chickens in the chicken farm have started to lay eggs. The money the farmers earn from selling eggs every month is equivalent to their annual income. Young master, you don't have to worry. If you reduce all the rent, everyone will feel bad." Li Zixuan was slightly relieved. He smiled and said, "That's good. If the farmers have any difficulties, just let me know. I'll go to my father-in-law's house first." Okay. Young master, go ahead." 7th Grandfather Han stroked his beard and chuckled. Li Zixuan cupped his hands and left. "Father-in-law, I plan to build a road to connect Plum Village, Han Village, and Chang'an's official road." In the small courtyard of the Han family, Han Tianhu and Li Zixuan had prepared some dishes and wine. During the meal, Li Zixuan briefly mentioned the road construction plan. Han Tianhu put down his wine cup and said in surprise, "Repair the road? Little Xian, why did you suddenly think of repairing the road?" Li Zixuan repeated the theory that he had told Chao Wendong earlier: if you want to be rich, you must first build roads. After hearing this, Han Tianhu was speechless. After a while, he said, "Little Xian, since this is the result of your careful consideration, then this old man will support you. Have you prepared the money and manpower to build the roads?" Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Everything is ready. Now everything is ready. We're just waiting for the construction to start. However, the road construction process might take up a portion of the land. Of course, it won't take up the entire land. It will only take up a small portion of the land. Even so, it will affect the farmer's future harvest. That's why I'm here today to ask for your help in coordinating with the farmers. We'll see if we can reduce the rent or compensate the farmers who have their land occupied. In the past, the road between Han Village and Plum Village was too narrow. Now that the road was going to be repaired, the road had to be widened. If it was widened, it might take up the land by the roadside. Regarding the land occupied by the road construction, if this was the modern era, it would be called land expropriation compensation. However, the land in Han Village originally belonged to the Li family, so there was no need to talk about land expropriation compensation. At most, the land would be reduced according to the size of the land occupied by the farmers. Alternatively, it would be converted into copper coins and paid to the farmers in one lump sum. Han Tianhu thought seriously for a while before saying, "Yes, this is indeed a problem. After we finish eating, I'll gather the farmers to discuss this matter. I don't think there will be any problems. After all, repairing the road is a good thing for the farmers in the village." At around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the villagers of the Han family manor were gathered at the threshing field at the entrance of the village. After waiting for a while, Han Tianhu saw that everyone was present. He stood in front of the crowd and said in a clear voice, "Today, I've gathered all of you here because I want to discuss something with you. It's like this. Young Master intends to build a cement road similar to the one in Yanhuang College. It will connect Han Village and Plum Village with the official road outside Chang and City. Because the cement road that young Master wants to build is very wide, it will take up a small portion of everyone's land in the middle. In the future, the harvest will definitely be reduced. So today, I've gathered everyone here to discuss the compensation. Let's see if you're willing to reduce the rent or take a sum of money directly." As soon as Han Tianhu's voice fell, the villagers below began to discuss with each other with a buzzing sound. "Repair the road? Young Master wants to repair the road for us? That's great. And it's a cement road. Do you know what cement road is? It's the very smooth road like Yanhuang College's. I didn't expect that we would be able to walk on that road in the future. If this road is repaired, won't we only need half an hour to get to Chang and in the future? Li Zheng, when will young Master repair the road for us? I'll go over and help," Hu Hanyun shouted as he looked at Han Tianhu. Han Tianhu replied, "It started this afternoon. So everyone needs to discuss and come to a conclusion as soon as possible. We don't want to affect young Master's progress." Hu Hanyun laughed and said, "Hey, what's there to discuss? Even if the road will take up some land, how much land can a road take up? Anyway, old Hu, don't want any compensation. Young Master repairing the road is also a good thing for the farm. Young Master has already done his utmost for us by not asking me to repair the road. How can I, old Hu, be so thick-skinned as to ask young Master for money?" What Han Yun said is right. Although the road will take up some land and affect the future harvest, if this road is repaired, it will be of great benefit to our entire village. We can't be ungrateful and ask the young Master for money for such a small profit. Grandfather Han also spoke up at this moment. After the old man finished speaking, voices of agreement rang out one after another. Grandfather Han is right. Young Master is kind enough to repair the road for us. We can't be ungrateful. Yes, we can't be ungrateful. Li Zheng, we don't want any compensation. In an instant, the farmers were clamoring to reject Li Zishuan's compensation for the land. This was what the people wanted. Chapter 776. The same thing happened in the Plum Village. In the afternoon, after Li Zishuan finished his meal, he went to the Plum Village to inform the village chief, Lu Qingfeng. Lu Qingfeng also gathered the villagers at the village entrance. Unsurprisingly, the villagers of the Plum Village were the same as the villagers of the Han Village. They were not willing to accept any compensation. "Hey, young Master is too kind. Previously, he reduced our rent by so much. Now we have eggs to sell. Whoever goes to young Master to ask for compensation is really too heartless." "That's right. We can't accept this compensation. Otherwise, my wife will beat me to death. We have to live up to our conscience. We can't let young Master's heart down." Compared to the Han Village, the villagers of the Plum Village did not enjoy the profits from selling the mountain fruit. However, their loyalty to Li Zishuan and their sense of belonging to the Li family was no less than the villagers of the Han Village. This was because before the Plum Village became Li Zishuan's fiefdom, they were bullied by the father and son of the Lu family. It was Li Zishuan's arrival that saved them from their misery and allowed them to live a happy life. They cherished everything they had now. Not only can we not ask young Master for money, I think we should help young Master fix the road. After all, didn't young Master fix this road for us? Now that the crops have been harvested, each family can probably contribute one laborer. This way the road can be fixed faster. Don't you think so, Second Master? Mei Jun, who was in the crowd, suddenly shouted. Lu Qifeng, who was in front of the crowd, frowned. Second Master Lu, who was in the crowd, pinched his chin and said, Ha ha. Mei Jun, you brat, you're right. Young master is building this road for us. Although we don't need to fork out any money, we can contribute. Don't you think so, everyone? Second Master Lu's influence in the Plum Village was not to be underestimated. Once he said that, the villagers all echoed his words. Second Master Lu is right. Since we can't fork out any money, we have to contribute. Otherwise, we won't be able to live up to our conscience. That's right. Young Master fixed this road for us. How can we not help? We have to help. I'll help young Master tomorrow. At Yanhuang College, when Li Zixuan received the news from Han Tianhu and Lu Qingfeng, he had a strange expression on his face. He felt both helpless and touched. Compared to the modern society, where everyone was profit-driven and deceitful, the people of the Tang Dynasty were much more simple and honest. Kindness to others will eventually be rewarded with kindness. The villagers could see the little bit of good deeds that Li Zixuan usually did, and when it was within their power, they would not hesitate to contribute their own good deeds. Maybe this is what they mean by good will be rewarded with good. Li Zixuan murmured to himself, fine, fine. Since they have good intentions, I'll accept it. I just don't know how long it will take to fix this cement road. After it was repaired, it would be faster and more comfortable to take a horse carriage from the academy back to Chang'an. This is what I call enjoyment. Therefore, on this afternoon, Yan Xiaoning led a construction team of more than 3,000 people and quietly began the construction of the world's first cement road. The next day, a big event was about to happen in Chang'an City. Toilet paper was going to be sold. Last weekend, Yanhuang College's students were on holiday. The people outside heard from the students that Yanhuang College had a very soft type of toilet paper that was especially suitable for wiping people's butt. At that time, it attracted a lot of people who wanted to buy it. Unfortunately, Chitsiu Pavilion did not sell toilet paper. Of course, the week mentioned here referred to a unit of time that Yanhuang College proposed to make it easier to calculate the students' holidays. Every 7 days was a week. This was clearly explained in the Yanhuang College calendar. Currently, the concept of week had started to become popular in a small circle, but it was not fully popularized yet. Yesterday, these people heard from Tang Dynasty Daily that Chitsiu Pavilion was going to start selling toilet paper today. One by one, they came to line up early in the morning, ready to buy some to try. Although some of them had children studying in the academy, no one would let their children secretly take toilet paper from the academy. Firstly, it would be embarrassing if they were found out. Secondly, it was not worth the risk for toilet paper at all. What if they were expelled? What would they do then? Hey, I can finally buy some toilet paper to try at home today. I don't know if this thing is as magical as the legends say. Of course it is. Anything from Chitsiu Pavilion must be the best. That's right, but I don't know how much the Chitsiu Pavilion prepared today. Don't sell it out before it's my turn. I don't think so. I heard that Chitsiu Pavilion's workshop expanded in Plum Village. The number of craftsmen there is several times more than before. Didn't you see that there's no need to rush to buy the new carriages, glass cups, and glass lamps? This means that we don't have to worry about the Chitsiu Pavilion's current production capacity. Hee, that's good, that's good. Hey, the door is open, the door is open. Shopkeeper's son and the others are coming out. At this moment, the door of Chitsiu Pavilion opened. Sun Huayuan walked out with a smile on his face flushed. Dear customers, don't worry, everyone has a share today. The workshop has prepared 3 days' worth of toilet paper to ensure that everyone can buy it. Don't push, don't cut in line, take your time. 1 roll of toilet paper is only 100 copper coins. Before anyone could say anything, Sun Huayuan had already spoken first. The crowd immediately became restless. 100 copper coins for a roll of toilet paper was still a little expensive. If they bought it, they would have to use money to wipe their butts when they pooped. Of course, only a small number of people hesitated. Most people were not dissatisfied with the price. After all, in this era where paper was very expensive, strictly speaking, 100 copper coins for a roll of toilet paper was actually not expensive. After Sun Huayuan finished speaking, he cupped his hands to the crowd and turned to enter Chitsu Pavilion. Most of the people who came to buy toilet paper were not shocked by the price of 100 copper coins per roll. However, as Sun Huayuan said that everyone could buy toilet paper, many people, especially those who were at the back of the line, were very excited and secretly sighed. The Chitsu Pavilion finally doesn't have to miss out every time. This is great. At first glance, it was obvious that these people had been cheated by the Chitsu Pavilion's hunger marketing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have complained like this. Chapter 777. Wow! It's so white and soft. Inside the strange interest pavilion, a customer exclaimed. Don't misunderstand, he wasn't doing anything inappropriate. He was just caressing a roll of toilet paper. So this is toilet paper. This is 1,000 times, no, 10,000 times more comfortable than toilet paper. In this world, no one can compare to Lordly when it comes to enjoyment. Give me 10 rolls. It was obvious that this was someone who didn't lack money. He directly asked for 10 rolls. The curious pavilion was also very confident today. They didn't set a limit on how much each person could buy. As long as it wasn't the kind of person who wanted to buy hundreds or thousands of rolls, the curious pavilion would sell it to them. Clearly, Sun Huayuan was very confident in the amount of toilet paper they had. Quick, quick, give me 10 rolls too. A young man in a servant's uniform held a copper coin and hurriedly called out. It seemed like he was a servant of some rich family. His young master might even be a student of the academy. Counting the days, Yanhuang College would be on holiday this afternoon. The second weekend was coming soon. The people at the front of the line returned with a full load. The people at the back were looking forward to it. As time passed, more and more people returned with a full load. The remaining toilet paper in the curious pavilion didn't show any signs of drying up. What everyone was worried about didn't happen. In an elegant room in the curious pavilion, 6 people sat. They were Sun Huayuan, Chao Wendong, Liao Shifan, Lin Wenyuan, Zhang Jingyang, and the housekeeper from the Wang family who helped Wang Renbiao buy the shares last time. Clearly, the first batch of members of the Flame Yellow Chamber of Commerce were all here, except for the Crown Prince. Everyone, my Lord Zhu said that the first batch of toilet paper will be given to you all. The Crown Prince doesn't need this business. The 5 of you can each get an average of 10,000 rolls of toilet paper. The price is 80% of the market price. After this, the curious pavilion will provide you with a batch of goods. You can sell them in Chang'an City, or you can ship them to other places to sell at a high price. My Lord Zhu won't interfere. Sun Huayuan asked the servant to pour a cup of tea for each of the 4 people present and then said faintly. Actually, according to Li Zishuan's intentions, the curious pavilion would sell fewer and fewer goods in the future. He would distribute most of the goods to the members of the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce for them to sell. After all, these members had paid a high price to join the curious pavilion. How could he not give them some benefits? Moreover, by selling a large number of goods to them at once, they could quickly recoup their funds. With these funds, they could quickly expand their production, thus forming a virtuous cycle. Although the price of selling to the members would be much cheaper, Li Zishuan would not suffer any losses. Sun Huayuan's words caused the eyes of Chao Wendong and the others to light up. Clearly, the current productivity of the curious pavilion had surprised them. Thank you, Shopkeeper Sunday. I'll ship the toilet paper to other states and counties to sell. The curious house in Chang'an is enough. Chao Wendong and the others looked at each other, then stood up and cupped their hands towards Sun Huayuan. It was clear that this was an extremely discerning person. He did not want to compete with the curious pavilion in Chang'an. Sun Huiyuan chuckled and waved his hand. Shopkeeper Chow, you worry too much. My Lord Ju said that you can sell wherever you want. You don't have to worry too much. Hearing Sun Huiyuan say this again, Chao Wendong and the others were convinced that Li Zixuan did not care about the Chang'an market at all. They all hurriedly stood up and cupped their hands in thanks. Shopkeeper Sun, Lord Ju is willing to distribute the toilet paper to us to sell. I wonder if Lord Ju is willing to distribute the rest of the items, such as the new carriage, glass cup, and divine mirror? Liao Shifan carefully looked at Sun Huiyuan, then stood up and asked tentatively. Chao Wendong, Lin Wenyuan, and Zhang Jingyang secretly praised Liao Shifan for his boldness. They all looked at Sun Huiyuan with hopeful eyes. The old housekeeper of the Wang family did not pay much attention to this. This was because Li Zixuan had cooperated with Wang Renbiao a long time ago. Even without the flaming yellow chamber of commerce, the Wang family did not lack the new carriage, glass cup, and divine mirror. As for why the Wang family, despite being blessed by the heavens, still wanted to pay a huge sum of 100,000 strings of coins to join the flaming yellow chamber of commerce, this could only be attributed to Wang Renbiao's wisdom. He felt that the items the curious house had now were only the tip of the iceberg of Li Zixuan's abilities. He was optimistic that Li Zixuan would be able to create even greater wealth in the future. Sun Huiyuan stroked his beard, then took out a piece of paper from his sleeve and handed it to everyone. Haha, my Lord Ju has already instructed that this paper contains a list of all the goods in the curious house's inventory. In principle, based on the percentage of shares each family has, you can split these goods at 70 to 80% of the market price. Of course, if there are people who don't want a certain item, they can also sell it to others. This will depend on how you discuss it. In truth, this was just a temporary measure, because the curious house's production capacity had not yet been fully released. In a few more days, when the production capacity of the workshop was fully released, Chao Wendong and the others could buy whatever they wanted, and as much as they wanted. It all depended on their personal wealth. Other than the old housekeeper of the Wang family, everyone else was delighted. They had not joined the Chamber of Commerce for nothing. At this rate, they would soon be able to earn back all of their membership fees. It had to be known that even though the Wang family had deep roots and great strength, they had not been able to sell the goods of the curious house to every province and county of the Great Tang. Besides Chang'an, the other provinces and counties still had a great desire for the goods of the curious house. That's great, that's great. Many thanks to Shopkeeper Sun, many thanks to Lord Ju. After looking through the list of goods, Chao Wendong said excitedly. It was true that he was the largest cloth merchant in Chang'an, but with his channels, it was very easy for him to sell the goods of the curious house to other places at a high price. Sun Huiyuan waved his hand and said with a serious face, "Everyone, forgive this old man for speaking out of turn. My Lord Ju does not object to you using the goods of the curious house to earn money, but my Lord Ju does not wish for you to earn money that goes against your conscience. You can be rich, but you cannot be unethical. My Lord Ju is an official in the imperial court and has always valued his reputation. As members of the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce, you must not tarnish the reputation of the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce because of your own lack of morals. Otherwise, my Lord Ju will definitely not tarnish the reputation of the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce." Everyone's hearts trembled, and they hurriedly stood up and clasped their hands. "Please rest assured, Shopkeeper Sunday. We will definitely not do anything unethical and tarnish the reputation of the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce." Sun Huiyuan nodded. This warning was the first warning that Li Zixuan had given to the members of the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce. Chapter 778. Your Highness, this servant doesn't understand. Why are you still eating when His Majesty already said that this thing isn't beneficial to your chi illness? These locusts aren't anything good. In Changle Palace, a purple-clothed palace maid stood by Changle's side and whispered carefully. It seemed that this palace maid should be Changle's intimate person. Otherwise, she wouldn't know that this meteoric success was made with locusts. As she spoke, she glanced at the plate of golden meteoric success in front of Changle. When she thought that it was actually locusts inside, she couldn't help but feel nauseous. If it weren't for the wrong occasion, she probably would have vomited. Changle's face didn't show any discomfort. The little girl very quietly used her chopsticks to put the meteoric success into her mouth one by one. Her movements were neither hurried nor slow, and her movements were very elegant. When she heard the palace maid's question, Changle lightly opened her red lips and smiled faintly. Imperial Father also heard from the imperial physicians that locusts can't treat illnesses, but I believe in Brother Xiaoxian. Brother Xiaoxian can treat General Qin's illness, so his medical skills are naturally the best. If he says that this thing is good for my body, then it's definitely good. As soon as she finished speaking, Changle's eyes lit up abruptly, and she picked up a piece of meteoric prosperity before looking at the palace maid and saying, "Moreover, this meteoric prosperity that Big Brother Xiaoxian made is really delicious. Li quickly come over and try it." Ah? The palace maid named Li was shocked, and then her face was full of bitterness. She secretly blamed herself for talking too much just now. Now it seemed that she was really asking for trouble. "Your Highness, this is from Li Xiannan to treat your illness. This servant can't eat it." Li waved her hand and quickly said. Changle's beautiful eyes immediately curved into two small crescent moons. She smiled and said, "It's fine. Brother Xiaoxian sent a lot of meteoric success. I can't finish it alone. Li you can help me eat some." This was really asking for Qingqing's life. Li knew that she couldn't refuse anymore. She could only walk in front of Changle with a bitter face. She cupped her hands and went to receive the piece of meteoric success from Changle's chopsticks. Changle pursed her lips and smiled. "Why go through so much trouble? Come, Li quickly open your mouth." Li's delicate figure trembled, and she was truly overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. She had the intention to refuse, but Changle was looking at her with a burning gaze, so she could only obediently open her small mouth. Not long after, a piece of charred and tender meat was sent into her mouth. All right, Li hurry up and eat. It's really delicious." Changle made a victorious expression, put away her chopsticks, and giggled. Li was helpless. She could only forcefully endure the nausea in her stomach, and started to use her teeth to bite that piece of meat in her mouth. It's rare for His Highness to be so happy. If it's a locust, then so be it. After all, it won't kill anyone. At most, I'll just rinse my mouth a few more times after eating. Li thought in her heart. To her surprise, when she bit into the meat, there was no disgusting smell. Instead, there was a strong aroma of eggs and meat. She couldn't help but widen her eyes. Was this the meat of a locust? Why is it so delicious? How is it? Is it delicious? Changle looked at Li expectantly and asked. "Oh, delicious. Your Highness, this meteoric is really delicious. Li County's men are really amazing. Even the meat of a locust can be so delicious." Li was a little embarrassed as she licked the minced meat at the corner of her mouth with the tip of her tongue and smiled excitedly at Changle. Since you think it's delicious, then you can eat with me in the future. Anyway, I can't finish this amount by myself." Changle looked extremely happy. Of course, she also had a reason to be happy because there wouldn't be someone watching strangely from the side when she ate locusts in the future. "Your Highness, this isn't too good, right?" Li was a little hesitant. To be honest, the meteoric she ate just now was indeed very delicious. She liked to eat it very much, but if she ate it with Changle every day, it seemed a little out of line. "What's wrong with this? I let you eat with me, so just eat." While Changle was recruiting friends to eat locusts, outside the palace there was another scene. After Daigneau and Erniau of the Han family manor found a way to make a fortune by selling locusts, they really couldn't be stopped. Every morning they woke up earlier than the chickens. The farmlands in the manor became their main battlefield. They could be seen wandering around the farmlands all day long. As the news spread, more and more children found out that the locusts could be sold for money. This group grew stronger day by day. Naturally, the parents of the children also noticed the abnormality of their children. On one hand, they were afraid of the locust god. On the other hand, they were worried about the huge profit brought by something as insignificant as the locusts. These parents suddenly hesitated. There were those who agreed and those who disagreed. Those who agreed naturally encouraged all the children in their family to join the locust-catching army. Some parents even rolled up their sleeves and joined the battle personally. Those who objected captured their own children and forbade them from catching locusts in the field. However, when they saw that their other children had earned a lot of copper coins from catching locusts, they were envious and tried their best to escape from the cage. In fact, they were not the only ones who were envious. Their parents were also secretly envious. Logically speaking, one caddy of locusts could be sold for 3 copper coins. This was not a low price. If they did nothing but go to the farmlands to catch locusts, if they were lucky, the day's profit would be equal to the day's wages at the docks. Most importantly, catching locusts was not only a job for adult men, but also for the elderly, women, and children. Think about it, if the whole family was involved, then the daily profit would be, just like that, when they saw other people getting rich. Many who were against the idea of catching locusts were shaken. Gradually, they joined the ranks of the locust-catching army. Actually, compared to using locusts to make food, it was Li Zishuan's real purpose to shake people's attitudes towards locusts. Since these deep-rooted beliefs were not easy to change, then he would use subtle benefits to assimilate them. As a result, the number of locusts purchased by the Academy's cafeteria skyrocketed. Initially, Soaring Star was only provided to the students in the special training class. However, after a few days, the head chef realized that there were too many locusts. The students in the special training class could not finish them all. Therefore, after asking for permission from Li Zishuan, Soaring Star was provided to all the students and teachers in the academy. At the time, Li Tai and Sun Zifan were overjoyed. The delicacy of Soaring Star captured the taste buds of many students. What was the most popular dish at the academy now? It had to be none other than Soaring Star. Chapter 779. A few more days passed. Plum Village and the villages around the Han Village also knew that the Yanwang College cafeteria was buying locusts. Moreover, it was 3 copper coins per caddy. Wasn't that picking up money? Therefore, the army of locusts increased several times. The number of locusts that the college cafeteria received was even more overwhelming. This time, even if all the teachers and students in the college ate to their heart's content, they wouldn't be able to finish it. However, Li Zishuan was already prepared for this situation. On this day, the Zuaxian restaurant in Chang, an city's west city, quietly released a new dish called Meteoric Success. Yo! Shopkeeper Lu, there's a new dish again. Meteoric Success, that's a good name. When it was close to noon, a customer came to the Immortal Indulgence Inn, and he inadvertently glanced at a new dish on the menu. When he focused his eyes and saw the words Meteoric Rise written on it, he couldn't help but laugh. Hey! Isn't this old Master Wang? Long time no see. Shopkeeper Lu's face was full of wrinkles. He first greeted him, then replied, "This Meteoric Success is a new dish invented by my Lord Zhu. It was originally only available in Yanwang College, and the students were full of praise for it. My Lord Zhu felt that this delicacy should be shared with everyone, so old Master Wang, you're lucky today." That diner was obviously shocked. Wow! It's actually a new dish invented by Lord Ju, and only the college could eat it before. I'm really lucky today. He saw that there were still empty seats in the restaurant. Therefore, he said to Shopkeeper Liu, "Shopkeeper Liu, give me a portion of gnawed chicken, a portion of dongpa meat, and a portion of meteoric success and a pot of gentle beauty." Obviously, this person was also a rich person. He didn't even ask for the price of meteoric success and directly asked for a portion. Shopkeeper Liu chuckled and replied, "All right. Old Master Wang, please take a seat. The dishes will be served soon." A moment later, the dishes were served. The golden and tender meteoric success looked very appetizing just from its appearance. The moment it was served, it immediately attracted the attention of many people. That diner swallowed his saliva and picked up his chopsticks to eat the soaring star. As soon as the crispy and soft soaring to heaven entered his mouth was immediately filled with the aroma of eggs and meat. There was also a tinge of numbness. This customer couldn't help but widen his eyes and exclaim repeatedly that it was delicious. He simply couldn't stop. Oh, delicious! It was really delicious. There was a salty smell, a fragrant smell of fried oil, a numbing smell, and a meaty smell. "Manager Liu, what kind of meat is used to make this soaring to prosperity? Why is it so fragrant?" After wolfing down a few pieces, the customer smacked his lips and yelled at Manager Liu. "Hey, Manager Liu, you're so kind. Hey! This is our drunken immortal in's secret recipe. Lord Ju has instructed us not to spread it out. Old Master Wang, please don't blame us." Shopkeeper Liu chuckled and replied. Although those who had eaten soaring to prosperity would inevitably know that it was made from locust meat, Li Zishuan wanted to hide it for as long as possible. When the day came when he couldn't hide it anymore, they would already be addicted to the delicacy of soaring to prosperity. They wouldn't be able to give up even if they wanted to. That was the result that Li Zishuan wanted. He, Manager Liu's words are too serious. Since it's a secret, it's only right that you don't say it. This old man was just asking casually. The most important thing is that this soaring to prosperity is delicious. That's enough, the customer said with a face full of smiles. "Manager Liu, give us 2 plates of soaring to prosperity too. Give us 2 plates here too." When the surrounding people heard this customer praising the delicacy of soaring to prosperity, they all began to order as well. "Yo! Soaring to prosperity? That's a good name. Manager Liu, give us 2 plates." While they were talking, Liao Shifan walked in with Zhang Jingyang. Liao Shifan smiled and said, "Don't worry." The two of them were old acquaintances of the Drunken Immortal restaurant, so there was no need for formalities. Manager Liu responded and asked the waiter to bring them to their seat. "Brother Liao, now that we're on Lord Ju's boat, we're really soaring to prosperity with a bright future. Your dishes are really good, it suits the occasion." After taking their seats, Zhang Jingyang said with a flushed face. It was obvious that he had been very happy recently. This is just the beginning. I believe that Lord Ju's future achievements will definitely be more than this. The money that we invested will definitely be several times or even tens of times the returns," Liao Shifan said with a smile. At the same time, he felt that it was a pity that Feng Zhihua, who went out to sea with the Imperial Court's fleet, hadn't returned yet. Because once the fleet returned, he would be able to invest more money and earn more money. Brother Liao, you have good taste. Hey, little Xian, what are these things that you put in the yard? They look like eggs, but why do you have so many eggs? Saturday, Yanhuang College's day off. In the afternoon, Qing Chumo went to Li Zishuan's courtyard in Yunshan and saw that the cement ground in the yard was filled with densely packed spherical things. They looked like eggs, but there was a layer of gray substance on top of them, which looked a little strange. Qing Chumo squatted on the ground and touched it, then asked loudly. This guy didn't return to Chang, and during the holidays and just stayed in Yunshan. Although he could buy toilet paper now, Cheng Chumo still wasn't used to living in the old house in Chang'an. Old Cheng's family had a courtyard in Yunshan that was gifted by Li Zixuan. There was nothing in it before, but Cheng Chumo didn't get used to living at home last week. After returning to the academy, he began to order people to move furniture in. Now that it was habitable, this guy became Li Zixuan's neighbor and would visit from time to time. Put it down, don't touch it. This is an egg with lime. I took it out to dry today. Chonyo, don't mess around. Li Zixuan walked over and kicked Cheng Chumo's, but in a bad mood as he said. To make century eggs, the fresh eggs were placed in a pot or basin filled with lime paste. After the eggs were dipped in lime, they were taken out and mixed with chaff or sawdust. Then, they were placed in a jar and sealed. Generally speaking, it would take about 7 days in spring and autumn, and 4 days in summer. When the time was up, they should be taken out to dry in the jar. This time, the century eggs that were being dried in the Li family's courtyard were the ones that had been rolled out last week. It's really an egg. Oh my God! I didn't believe it when I heard that your family was buying eggs a while ago, but I didn't expect it to be true. Xiao Xian, why did you get so many eggs? You even added lime. Are you trying to hatch chicks? Cheng Chumo stood up, looked at Li Zixuan, and said stupidly. Li Zixuan's face was full of black lines. Hatch chicks? I'll hatch NMLGB. Where have you seen chicks hatched like this? Chapter 780. Hatching your sister's chickens. I say, can't your brain work a little better? What are you thinking about all day long? Li Zixuan slapped Cheng Chumo's head and said angrily. Cheng Chumo screamed in pain, then retreated far away and said, F***ck. A gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists. Xiao Xian, why are you so violent now? Besides, there are so many eggs. If you're not going to use them to hatch chickens, what are you going to use them for? Are you going to eat them? Li Zixuan said lightly, Yes, you're right. These eggs are for eating. F***ck. Who are you trying to fool? There are so many eggs. They'll spoil after a few days. How can you finish them with so few people in your family? Cheng Chumo said with a face of disbelief. This idiot. Li Zixuan shook his head and said, These eggs are not ordinary eggs. They can be stored for a long time. As he said that, he picked up a century egg covered with lime and sawdust and said, This egg is now 80% cooked. After a few days, you can peel the eggshell directly, add some vinegar and garlic, and eat it. It's simply a delicacy. Duck eggs were the majority of century eggs made with traditional methods. However, if you used duck eggs to make century eggs, because the eggshell of duck eggs was thicker, it generally took 30 to 40 days. The eggshell of duck eggs was thinner, and the pores on the surface were thicker. Generally, it would completely turn into century eggs in about 10 days. Of course, if you wanted it to taste good, it would need to be stored for a few more days. Therefore, it wouldn't be long before Li Zixuan's century eggs in the courtyard could be eaten. After listening to Li Zixuan's description, Cheng Chumo couldn't help but lick his lips, but he still didn't believe it. Cooked? Did you cook the eggs? Even so, the eggs can't be stored for long. What a country bumpkin, Li Zixuan thought unhappily in his heart. I didn't say that the eggs were cooked. You're the one who misunderstood. Forget it, I'm too lazy to argue with you. You should be able to taste this delicacy next week. Hee, that's great. Next time, I'll definitely come on time. Hearing this, Cheng Chumo didn't care about how these eggs were cooked. Obviously, the food was more important. Xiao Xian, the villagers from Plum Village and Han Village have been clamoring to help with the road repairs these few days. We can't even stop them. I don't know what to do either. If we give them a salary, I'm afraid that the other members of the construction team won't agree because these farmers are definitely not as professional as them. If we don't give them a salary, we'll be letting down the villagers' good intentions. When the time comes, people will definitely say that we're stingy. When evening approached, Yan Xiaoning came over. He found Li Zixuan and said with a conflicted expression, "Oh, there's such a thing?" Li Zixuan raised his eyebrows in surprise. After thinking for a while, he said, "Xiaoning, your concerns are very reasonable. How about this? The farmer's daily wages will be half of the worker's wages in the construction team. What do you think?" Li Zixuan had just established the Yan Huang Chamber of Commerce and raised more than 300,000 strings of coins. Therefore, logically speaking, Li Zixuan wasn't lacking in money. Since his farmers were so supportive, he couldn't let them work for nothing, right? Yan Xiaoning rolled his eyes and said, "What do I think? What can I think? This money is yours. You can spend it however you want." Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He glanced at Li Zixuan and said in a strange tone, "Oh, right, Xiao Xian. I say, you're really bad. You actually bought so many locusts from Plum Village and Han Village, and made them into meteoric success for the students and the diners in Chang to eat. You're too mean." Li Zixuan was stunned and asked curiously, "Xiaoning, how did you know that meteoric success was made from locusts?" Yan Xiaoning curled his lips and said in disdain, "I'm not stupid. Today I saw a lot of children catching locusts in the fields by the roadside. I randomly grabbed one of them and asked. Only then did I know that the locusts they caught were all sent to Yanhuang College's cafeteria. Then, I thought about the meteoric success that you introduced before. I roughly guessed that it was locusts' meat. I really didn't expect that you would do such a wicked thing. Damn it, I was still eating meteoric success a few days ago." At the end of his speech, Yan Xiaoning gnashed his teeth in hatred. If he could beat Li Zixuan, he would probably beat him up right now. After all, no one would be in a good mood if they found out that the delicacy they had been eating was made of locust meat. Li Zixuan touched his nose awkwardly. However, after a moment, he realized why he was embarrassed. Wasn't it just locust meat? The living conditions of people in the 21st century were so good. Didn't many people like to eat it? I spent so much effort to promote locusts just so that fewer people would starve to death next year. Hee. Then, Xiaoning, tell me honestly, is meteoric success delicious? Will you still eat it in the future? Li Zixuan came back to his senses and looked at Yan Xiaoning with a smirk. Yan Xiaoning heard him and was in a dilemma. He wanted to harden his heart and say that he wouldn't eat it. However, he felt like he was slapping himself in the face if he said that he would eat it. After all, he was just belittling the meteoric success. Ugh! This meteoric success's taste is just so. I definitely won't eat it in the future. I still have things to do, so I'll leave first. After struggling for a long time, Yan Xiaoning still couldn't swallow his pride. He could only say that and run away. Hee. Even Yan Xiaoning is like this. When other people know the truth in the future, they will definitely put on a delicious show. Li Zixuan looked at Yan Xiaoning's back and thought with some bad intentions. What? This meteoric success is actually made with locust meat? I won't eat it in the future. Yes. Even if I starve to death, I won't eat meteoric success again. This drunken immortal restaurant is too immoral. They actually gave us locust's meat. I won't eat here in the future. Yes. If I eat meteoric success again, I'll be a dog. This conversation should be the first reaction of most people when they found out that meteoric success was made with locust's meat. However, it wouldn't be long before they would be like this. Shopkeeper Lu, give me a plate of red braised pork, again, another plate of meteoric success. Hey, Brother Zhang, didn't you say a few days ago that you won't eat meteoric success anymore? Oh? Who said that? Did I say that? I definitely didn't say that. You must have heard wrongly. It's delicious. I miss it. The truth was just as Li Zixuan expected. At night, in a corner of the academy's cafeteria, Yan Xiaoning was eating the meteoric success on the table with relish. He sighed softly and said, it's so delicious. Chapter 781. Sure enough, where are you going? The next morning, Lu Yu saw her son holding a small bamboo basket and was about to go out. She quickly stopped him and asked, Mom, I'm going to catch locusts with Iron Egg and the others. Hu Guo turned around and smiled at his mother. He was on vacation this time. Seeing that his friends in the village were catching locusts all over the place, and hearing that the locusts could be sold for money at the Yanhuang Academy, he could not sit still after finishing his homework at home. Sure enough, stop. Lu Yu heard that her son was going to catch locusts and quickly stopped him. She walked over and said, Sure enough, you're a student of Yanhuang College now. How can you go to the fields to catch locusts? Aren't you embarrassing your husband by doing this? Besides, we don't lack money now. You'd better not go. Rest well at home or prepare for your future homework. The silly child from before had now become the envy of the entire Han village. It was all because Hu Guo was admitted to Yanhuang College. Lu Yu treasured her son very much. Hu Guo opened his mouth and said, Mom, Iron Egg is also in Yanhuang College. Why can he catch locusts but I can't? Lu Yu was speechless. Sure enough, are you done? We should go. At this moment, Iron Egg's voice came from outside. Hu Guo quickly stretched his neck and said loudly, Coming, Iron Egg bro, I'm coming. He then looked at Lu Yu and said, Mom, I'm leaving with Iron Egg bro now. I'll be back by noon. He didn't wait for Lu Yu's permission and ran out like a wisp of smoke. Lu Yu could only stare at her son's back. Hey, you silly woman, your son didn't dare to go out and hid at home every day. You secretly cried every day. Now that your son is willing to go out and play with others, you don't want to. You're really. Hu Hanyun, who was fetching water from the well in the east corner of the courtyard, said to his wife angrily. Lu Yu glared and retorted, How can it be the same? Our son is a student of Yanhuang College now, a scholar. How can it be the same as before? He has to maintain the dignity of a scholar. When Hu Hanyun heard this, although he was happy in his heart, his mouth said carelessly, Hey! Young master didn't say anything, but you silly woman. Tai Dan is young master's personal disciple. If he can catch locusts, how can our son be more precious than him? Lu Yu was a little flustered and exasperated. She snorted and said, I don't care. Anyway, my son is definitely the best. I can't be bothered with you, old thing. I'm going to the chicken farm on the mountain to pick up eggs. Sigh. It would be even better if I could pick up money. Hu Hanyun was speechless. A few days ago, in Plum Village, second Master Lu's chicken farm, 7 chickens had gone missing, but there were 3 strings of money on the ground. Once the news spread, it attracted the envy of many farmers. Everyone said that second Master Lu's family had encountered a group of righteous thieves who stole things and left money behind. 7 chickens, 3 strings of money, no matter how you looked at it, second Master Lu made a profit. So many people hoped that they could meet such thieves. Come back quickly, don't forget to come back at noon to cook. Hu Hanyun shouted at the top of his voice. Hey, got it? Lu Yu promised without turning her head. Sigh, I don't know when this child will come back. He said he would come back last month, but he didn't. I don't know if this child is doing well outside. It was said that mothers were closer to their sons, and fathers were closer to their daughters. This saying seemed to be true. Hu Hanyun looked at the empty courtyard and muttered to himself. Sigh. Iron Egg bro, why do you think Yamacho collected so many grasshoppers? Don't tell me Yamacho also likes to fight grasshoppers? In the fields of the Han village, Hu sure was looking for locusts on the ground while casually chatting with Iron Egg next to him. The small bamboo basket on his body was already filled with locusts. It seemed that he had a good harvest this morning. Hearing Hushur's stupid cute words, Iron Egg couldn't help but laugh. Sure enough, you are thinking too much. How could Master like to fight grasshoppers? Loner might like it. Hushur asked again. Then Iron Egg bro, why do you think Yamacho collected so many grasshoppers? Iron Egg lowered his head and thought for a while. Suddenly, his body shook, and he looked up and said meaningfully, maybe it's to cook. What? Cook? Grasshoppers can be cooked? Hushur's eyes almost popped out when he heard this. He asked incredulously. Iron Egg bro's face became calm. He said lightly, why can't they be cooked? Not only can they be cooked, but you have also eaten them recently. Hushur was shocked. Ah? I have eaten them recently? Iron Egg bro, are you saying that I have eaten grasshopper meat recently? Wretch, where did I eat it? Iron Egg bro sighed and shook his head. Sigh, not only did you eat it, but I also ate it. The meteoric rise in the academy was made with these grasshoppers. He just realized it, but what could he do even if he did? He had already eaten what he wanted to eat, and Li Zishuan was his master. He couldn't say anything and could only swallow his bitterness. No way? Meteoric rise is made of grasshoppers? Wretch, but it doesn't look like it at all. Hushur's face turned pale. He felt nauseous and said in disbelief. Oh, that only means that my master's technique is brilliant. Meteoric rise is definitely made of grasshoppers. You don't have to doubt it. Otherwise, it would be hard to explain where all the grasshoppers went. Iron Egg bro straightened his back, but he didn't feel nauseous. His face was calm. Ah? Then what should I do? Recently, I am addicted to eating meteoric rise. Iron Egg bro, you are telling me that this thing is made of grasshoppers. Should I continue to eat it in the future? Sure enough, he was in a dilemma. A few days later, the weather was cloudy. The military training had been going on for more than half a month. Everything was going according to the established procedures. The students were becoming more and more disciplined, and so were the instructors. Therefore, Li Zishuan rarely paid attention to the academy. Naturally, he couldn't get up in the morning and began to sleep in. Lord Ju, the Imperial Court's fleet is back. They are almost at the pier by the murky river. Chapter 782. What? The fleet is back? Li Zishuan woke up late in the morning. He was washing his face in the yard when he heard Pang Feiji's shout from the front of the yard. He was stunned at first, but then he was overjoyed. Quick, quick, prepare a horse for me. Let's go to the dock now. Li Zishuan excitedly wiped his face and roared at Pang Feiji, who was outside. Yes, Lord Ju. Brother, isn't there a show to watch? Lan wants to go too. Lan who was playing in the backyard, shouted happily at this moment. The little girl was at the age where she was playing around and didn't sleep much. She woke up much earlier than Li Zishuan. When she heard that there was a big ship to watch, she immediately became interested. Haha. Okay, Lan since you want to see it, I'll take you to see it. Li Zishuan's laughter came from the backyard. After a while, the two of them rode out of the Yunshan courtyard. Lan naturally rode with Li Zishuan. The little girl giggled along the way. Ever since Yanhuang College started, Li Zishuan, as her brother, hadn't accompanied her to play for a long time. Today was a rare opportunity for them to go out and watch the show together. Ba River was one of the 8 rivers of Chang'an. It originated in Lantian County and was located to the east of Chang'an City. On both sides of the Ba Bridge, 5 miles of embankments were built. Thousands of willows were planted, and tourists walked shoulder to shoulder. It was a spectacular sight in Chang'an. Every time spring was in full swing and the spring wind blew, the willow catkins would dance in the air, and fog would become a major sight on Ba Bridge in Chang'an. Ba River had a dock and a relay station. It was called Ba Pavilion. Many people would come here to welcome guests and bid them farewell. They would also break off willow branches as gift. Ba River flowed through May Village. There was a relatively large dock in the southeast of May Village. Many merchant ships came here to load and unload their goods. The previous expedition ceremony of the Imperial Court fleet was held at this dock. After about half an hour, Li Zixuan and the rest arrived at the Ba River dock. At this time, the dock was already crowded. "Why are there so many people?" Li Zixuan couldn't help but ask when he saw the huge crowd surrounding the pier. Pang Feiji wiped the sweat off his forehead and hesitated for a moment before saying, "This. I don't know who leaked the news, but these commoners most likely have relatives in the fleet. They should be here to welcome their family." "Maybe." Li Zixuan shook his head. He didn't want to delve deeper into it. He urged his horse to gallop into the crowd. "Mother, why haven't I seen Father yet? Didn't you say that Daddy is coming back today?" At the edge of the pier, a little girl raised her head to look at the middle-aged woman who was holding her little hand and asked in a crisp voice. The middle-aged woman gently stroked the little girl's ponytail and said softly, "Come back soon, come back soon." Although her voice was calm, her trembling hands showed that her heart was surging with emotions. She was not calm at all. She was just forcefully controlling her emotions to avoid losing her composure in front of her daughter. "Oh, Mother, do you think Father has lost weight or gained weight? I haven't seen Father for a long time. Yaya misses Father so much." That's right, this mother and daughter were Meng Wenhao's biological mother and sister. If not for the military training at Yanhuang College today, Meng Wenhao would definitely have come personally. "Your father should have lost weight, right?" Meng Wenhao's mother said hesitantly. Meng Wenhao had already heard about Meng Youliang's recent situation from Li Zixuan. However, in order to prevent his family from worrying, he didn't tell them the truth. Therefore, Meng Wenhao's mother didn't know anything about her husband's experience at sea. "Yaya, be good. Your father must have missed you a lot too." Hearing the latter half of her daughter's sentence, Meng Wenhao's mother's eyes stung and she almost cried. Everyone in the world liked to be reunited, but the sadness and joy of separation were the helplessness of the poor. If they wanted to survive, their family had to accept separation. If they were unlucky, this separation would become eternal. But what could they do? Yes. Mother, after Father comes back this time, let's not let Father leave us again, okay? Yaya can also help the family earn money. Recently, Yaya has made a lot of money from catching locusts, so we can buy a lot of buns. However, Yaya was still young and couldn't understand the sadness behind this family. The little girl blinked her clear eyes and innocently begged. Meng Wenhao's mother felt bad when she heard her daughter's naive words. She hugged her daughter's head to her waist and said softly, "Okay, Mother promises yet. After your father comes back this time, he will never leave us again." In fact, Yaya's wish was also Meng Wenhao's mother's wish. In the past few months when the fleet went out to sea, she didn't have a good night's sleep. She had never believed in gods and Buddhas, but she even went to Chang'an City's Daxing Shan temple to pray to Bodhisattva several times and donated dozens of copper coins for incense and oil. Dozens of copper coins were nothing to a rich family, but for the current Meng family, dozens of copper coins were not a small amount. They could buy hundreds of pounds of rice. However, in order to pray to the gods and Buddhas to protect her husband's safety, Meng Wenhao's mother felt that it was worth it. "How long will it take for the fleet to come back?" Li Zixuan held Lan Er's small hand and squeezed forward as he asked. Now that he was a Wu Dao master, he could naturally release his inner strength. Although the dock was crowded with people, and it was very crowded, with his strong inner strength, no matter where he went, the people around him would quietly bounce back a little. Therefore, he didn't have to worry about Lan Er being squeezed. "Sir, it should be soon. When I reported to you this morning, the fleet was only about 10 miles away. Now, it should be about 6 or 7 miles away." Opening the way in front should have been Pang Feiji's job as a guard. However, Li Zixuan, who spoiled his sister, was afraid that the crowd would squeeze and hurt Lan Er, so he personally opened the way. Therefore, Pang Feiji, the guard, actually hid behind Li Zishuan and enjoyed the treatment of a superior. 6 or 7 miles, based on the speed of the ship on the water, would only take about half an hour. Li Zishuan nodded and continued to pull Lan Er to the front of the crowd. The people of Chang and city all knew that the fleet was coming back today. As the emperor, Li Er couldn't not know. However, he certainly couldn't be like the people and wait there for a long time. Halfway through the morning court, a small eunuch quietly walked to Li Er's side and whispered a few words. Then, Li Er directly stood up and said to the officials in the court with a smile on his face, "The morning court will end today. Everyone, follow me to Murky Island to welcome the triumphant return of the fleet to the south." Chapter 783. Hey Renbiao, you're here too? With their powerful internal force, Li Zishuan and the other two finally came to the front of the crowd. However, they met an old acquaintance. Who else could it be but Wang Renbiao? Hee, it's Xiaoxian. I just received the news this morning. Fortunately, I had nothing to do, so I came to take a look. Wang Renbiao chuckled and looked at Li Zishuan. Oh right, Renbiao, I forgot to ask you before. Did the fleet find the rubber I told you about in Nanyang? A few days ago, he asked Wang Renbiao to help him inquire about the news. He only cared about Meng Yuliang's situation and forgot about his own business. When Wang Renbiao heard this, he was stunned. He then shook his head and said, I don't know about this yet. I only asked people to help inquire about the fleet. I didn't ask about the harvest of my fleet. Li Zishuan was speechless. He thought to himself, this Wang Renbiao's heart is really big. He doesn't even care about his own family's business. His attitude of treating money like dirt is comparable to mine. Well, then we can only wait for the fleet to come back in a while. Li Zishuan said helplessly. Oh, look, the fleet is here. The fleet is here. At this moment, a mast finally appeared on the surface of the Ba River. Then, the figure of a huge turreted ship slowly emerged from the water and was exposed to everyone's vision. It was unknown who discovered this phenomenon, but someone shouted loudly, and the crowd on the pier immediately boiled up. They're finally here! They're finally here! After going out to sea for almost 5 months, the fleet is finally back. God bless, the child's father must be fine. When the people saw more and more ships appear on the Ba River, they began to excitedly talk to each other. Most of them were praying for the safety of their family members. 5 months. This time, some families are happy and some are sad. At this moment, Li Zishuan was holding Lan Er's hand and standing at the front of the crowd. He looked at the densely packed boats on the river and sighed with mixed feelings. Although Wang Renbiao did not mention the details of the ambush on the fleet, Li Zishuan had obtained more detailed information from Li Chengqian. Of course, the source of the information was definitely related to Li Er. Therefore, he was very clear that the fleet's journey south this time was not without casualties. Not to mention the storms and diseases that took away the crew members on the sea route to the Nanyang countries. Just the sneak attack of the pirates that night caused the fleet to lose 28 soldiers and 12 civilians. This meant that a small-scale battle had caused 40 Tang soldiers to be buried in the sea, with no complete corpses left. 40 originally happy and blissful families were torn apart in an instant. At that time, who knew how many tears would be shed? Boo-hoo! As time passed, the 1,500-some merchant ships that had come south to trade 5 months ago appeared before everyone's eyes. The mournful sound of a bugle horn came from the ship in the center of the fleet, and then all the other ships began to drop their anchors, lower their sails, and slowly approach the shore. We're home. We're finally home. On a merchant ship, Meng Yuliang stood on the deck and leaned against the railing. As he looked at the sea of people on the shore, he couldn't help but sigh. On this voyage, he had almost been separated from his family forever. He was far from alone in his thoughts. Whether it was the civilian workers on the merchant ships or the Navy soldiers on the official ships, all of them couldn't suppress the joy in their hearts as they looked at the dock. Homesickness, homesickness, what could be more important than the fact that they would be home soon? Your Highness, we can go ashore. The main ship had already reached the dock, and people had already laid down the plank. Wu Di walked up to Li Shaogong and clasped his fist. This prince will come right away. A few moments later, Li Shaogong disembarked from the main ship with his guards. Li Zishuan walked up and cupped his hands in greeting. Congratulations on your Highness's triumphant return. Long time no see. Your Highness, how have you been? Li Shaogong gave a hearty laugh and patted Li Zishuan on the shoulder. This prince is in good health. Looking at the days, the Imperial College should have started school by now. How come you still have time to come here? Before leaving, he had entrusted his son to Li Zishuan. At the time, Li Zishuan was still an official at the Imperial College and had yet to fall out with Kong Yingda. Thus, Li Xiaogong's memories were still stuck at the time when Li Zishuan was still teaching at the Imperial College. He had no idea what was going on at Yanhuang College. Your Highness, this child is no longer at the Imperial College. 3 months ago, I resigned from my position at the Directorate and opened my own academy. Today, Huai-Ren is also in my academy. Li Zishuan knew that Li Shaogong was asking this because he wanted to know more about his son, Li Huairen, so he gave him a simple explanation. What? Xiaoxian, you're no longer at the Imperial College? Did something happen in between? Li Shaogong had indeed asked this question to find out more about his son, but he hadn't expected to ask such a shocking question. It's a long story. I'll tell your Highness in detail in the future. Li Zishuan knew that this wasn't the place to talk, so he said this to Li Shaogong. His Majesty has arrived. As they were speaking, another group of people arrived on the road to the west of the dock. When they heard the words His Majesty has arrived, they all hastily turned around. When they saw the person in bright yellow at the front of the group, they all bowed and said, "Paying respects to your Majesty." At the same place, with the same loud voice, one couldn't help but think of the departure ceremony that Li Er had held when the fleet went out to sea 5 months ago. Li Er followed the path that the crowd made and came to the edge of the docks, not far from Li Shaogong. He stopped and turned around to look at the densely packed crowd, saying, "Rise." Only then did the commoners and the soldiers on the ships straighten up. Li Er looked at Li Shaogong and said, "Shaogong, it's been hard on you." Li Shaogong hurriedly clasped his hands and said, "Your Majesty is too kind. It's my duty to share your Majesty's worries and worries. It's not hard at all." Li Er nodded. Then, he looked at the endless number of ships on the river and asked slowly, "Have all the ships of our great Tang returned?" Li Shaogong said solemnly, "Your Majesty, of the 1,587 ships that I brought, except for one that was burned at sea, the rest returned safely. Furthermore, the 32 small countries in Nanyang have all sent a fleet of ambassadors to follow me back to pay respects to the Tang Empire and your Majesty." Chapter 784. The Envoy of Zhenla greets the Emperor of Tang. The Envoy of Funan greets the Emperor of Tang. The Envoy of Piao greets the Emperor of Tang. Following Li Xiaogong's words, a group of people with different skin colors and clothes came down from the ship. They greeted Li Er respectfully with all kinds of etiquette. Some of them spoke in their native language, while others spoke in broken Chinese. When Li Shaogong saw this, he quickly assigned a middle-aged scholar beside him to translate for them. Li Er was very happy after hearing this. As an emperor, there was no one who did not like to achieve great things. It was just that every emperor had different priorities. Ha! Good. Where is Cui Er? Cui Shanfu stepped out from the crowd of civil and military officials and cupped his hands. I'm here. Bring the envoys of the various countries to Honglu Temple and treat them well. 3 days later, I will summon the envoys of the various countries at the imperial court meeting. In the Tang Dynasty, Honglu Temple was one of the 9 temples. It was in charge of the 4 barbarians' tributes, banquets, gifts, and welcoming. It was also in charge of the inauspicious ceremonies of the country, the ancestral temples of Zhongdu, and the Taoist scriptures and tents. Whenever the emperor of the 4 barbarians or envoys had an audience, they would be treated as guests. They would be given a place to stay, and they would be given invitations, gifts, and banquet. The Department of Precepts would prepare in advance. There were 20 translators who specialized in translation, and each of them knew different languages. Generally speaking, Honglu Temple was equivalent to the modern Ministry of Foreign Affairs with an additional translation function. Cui Shanfu was the minister of Honglu Temple at this time. There was an organization corresponding to Honglu Temple called the Warden's Office. However, there was a substantial difference in the functions of the two. Honglu Temple was in charge of foreign guests, while the Warden's Office mainly dealt with ethnic affairs. Yes, Your Majesty. Cui Shanfu didn't show it on his face, but he was complaining in his heart. This was because there were envoys from 32 countries. It was a rare sight to see such a large number of envoys in 100 years. Just communicating with so many envoys from different countries was difficult, not to mention other things. The pressure on Cui Shanfu's body was suddenly increased. After the envoys of various countries left the dock with Cui Shanfu and headed for Chang'an, Li Er looked at the endless boats on the river and turned around to give an order. Beloved official Xiao, beloved official Yan, the 2 of you will be in charge of the transportation of goods. The grain and goods on the imperial court's ships will be directly transported to Taicang. As for the goods on the civilian merchant ships, you will order people to calculate the income of each family. After they pay the merchant tax, have them start unloading the goods. Be careful to prevent some people from secretly embezzling. When the fleet was heading south, the imperial court had said that all merchant ships heading south with the army had to pay a 5% tax on their trade. This could be understood as a protection fee, but compared to the 20,000 elite navy that the imperial court had mobilized, this protection fee was very cheap. Yes, Your Majesty. When the Minister of Civil Affairs, Xiao Yu, and the Minister of Works, Yan Lide, heard Li Er call out their names, they quickly stepped forward and bowed. Li Er nodded. Seeing that everything was done here, he immediately said to the ministers, "Return to the imperial court." A messenger eunuch spread Li Er's order one by one. The civil and military ministers who came with him all agreed. Li Er was about to return to the imperial court with Li Xiaogong and the officials of the imperial court. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked at Li Zishuan, who was secretly watching from the side. He said, "You also come back to the imperial court with me." Li Zishuan was confused. He didn't know why the goddess of luck suddenly fell on his head and made him unable to resist. Yes, Your Majesty. Since he couldn't resist, he might as well enjoy it. He also wanted to hear about the harvest of the whole country, which had mobilized so many people to go south to trade. Commandery Prince Hejian, can you tell us about the harvest of this trip for our beloved officials? After Li Er led the ministers back to Taiji Palace, he sat up straight and looked at Li Xiaogong with a smile. Yes, Your Majesty. Li Xiaogong was already prepared. He responded, then took out a booklet and began to read slowly. For this voyage, the imperial court has raised a total of 500 officialship. This subject has used more than 3,000 strings of silk and porcelain to exchange for a total of 880,000 dan of grain. There are 170,000 caddies of various spices such as Lycopodium officinalis, 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 and various other spices. In addition, there are also 50,000 caddies of brass and 300,000 taels of silver. Silence. As Li Xiaogong read them out one by one, the court suddenly fell into a strange silence. 880,000 dawn of grain. Although this amount was a bit large and exceeded everyone's expectations, it could be attributed to the fact that Nanyang was rich in grain and had never seen the beautiful silk and porcelain of the Central Plains. But what the hell was 170,000 dawn of spices? Did you think that spices were weeds or radishes? Oh, at this time, radishes were still not called radishes. They were called fishes, see the Book of Songs. Picking fishes and picking fishes, there is no lower body. Cabbages were also not called cabbages, but spices had always been a precious existence in the Great Tang. Most of them were sold in pairs. Depending on the type of spices, the price could range from a few dozen copper coins to a few strings of one tael. When had anyone ever heard of someone possessing more than 10,000 dawn of spices? The 170,000 dawn of spices that Li Xiaogong mentioned was too frightening. However, Li Xiaogong wasn't lying. Some spices were really rampant in some of the island countries in the South China Sea. They grew everywhere like weeds. The 20,000 Navy soldiers he brought were farmers who cut the weeds many times. As for the 50,000 caddies of brass and 300,000 taels of silver, this was even more frightening. The total amount of silver that had been mined in the Great Tang was probably only around 200,000 to 300,000 taels. But Li Xiaogong actually brought back 300,000 taels of silver. What was even more shocking was that he even brought back 50,000 caddies of brass. Many of the courtiers started to look at Li Xiaogong with a strange expression. They wanted to ask, "Big brother, did you rob an entire country?" Of course, the courtiers were not surprised. The difference between the cost and the reward was too big. According to Li Xiaogong, he only used 3,000 strings of silk and porcelain to trade. But what about the things that he brought back? Just the 880,000 dawn of grain, according to the current grain price, would be worth more than 30,000 strings of coins. Adding in the 170,000 dawn of spices, 300,000 taels of silver, and 50,000 caddies of brass. Oh my God! Many of the courtiers calculated in their hearts, and in the end, they found it difficult to even breathe. Huge profits! This was more than 10 times the profit. It was more than 100 times the profit. What else in the world could be more profitable than this? Chapter 785. Some people might question whether 500 ships could transport 880,000 dan of grain. Of course they could. There was no doubt about it. During the Qin and Han dynasties, the development of our country's shipbuilding industry reached its peak. During the war to unify the southern part of China, Qin Shi Huang organized a fleet that could transport 500,000 dan of grain. With the technology at that time, they could build ships that could transport 50 to 60 tons of grain. One dan was 50 kilograms. In other words, a ship during the Qin and Han dynasties could carry more than 1,000 dan of grain. During the Tang and Song dynasties, the second peak in China's shipbuilding history was the dragon boat that Emperor Yang of Sui rode. It was 5 feet tall and 200 feet long. The upper level had the main hall, the inner hall, and the east and west imperial halls. The middle two levels had 120 rooms with a capacity of more than 300 tons. Of course, it was even more impressive during the Song dynasty. The Song dynasty built a divine boat for Korea. It had a capacity of more than 1,500 tons. Some large ships could carry tens of thousands of dan of grain and had a rudder that was 30 to 50 feet long. Taiji Palace. Although Li Er, who was sitting high above, was mentally prepared, he was still shocked by Li Xiaogong's work report. His eyes were as wide as the others. Fortunately, the courtier's attention was not on him, otherwise, if the remonstrant saw his gaffe, he would definitely be criticized again. Ahem! This trip to the south was really fruitful. Xiao Gong and the soldiers have worked tirelessly across thousands of miles and have contributed to the country. They should be rewarded. Li Er recovered from his shock and praised with a face full of emotion. Your Majesty! As soon as Li Er finished speaking, Wei Zheng walked in front of him. The old man cupped one hand in the other before his chest and said, Congratulations to Commander Prince Hejian for leading the fleet to the south. But there is still one thing that I don't understand. Where did you get these 300,000 taels of silver and 50,000 kilograms of brass? Wei Zheng was not targeting anyone. He was just stating the facts. Grain, spices, and ivory were all fine. But the amount of brass and silver was too huge for him to understand. After all, which country would use these things for trade? It didn't make any sense no matter what. After hearing Wei Zheng's question, the other ministers all cast doubtful glances at Li Xiaogong. However, Li Zishuan's heart skipped a beat. According to the information he had gathered, the 50,000 jin of brass and 300,000 taels of silver that Li Xiaogong had brought back were the war reparations that he had extorted from the Wu nation. If this was revealed, Li Xiaogong would most likely be impeached. Li Er's eyes darkened. Obviously, he also knew the inside story of the Japanese War. But now that Wei Zheng had asked in public, he could only watch Li Xiaogong's performance. As soon as Li Er left with the civil and military officials, the docks by the murky river immediately became lively. There were more than 1,000 large ships, and they definitely could not all dock at the same time to unload their cargo, so they could only come in batches. At the very front were the 500 official ships of the imperial court. Wu Di, the captain of Li Xiaogong's personal guard, came to Xiao Yu with a man who looked like a steward. He respectfully handed over a booklet and clasped his hands. Minister Xiao, this is the list of all the cargo on the official ship. He is the steward of the cabin, Yao Jing. If Minister Xiao has any questions, please ask me or Steward Yao. We will tell you everything we know. Well, okay. Thank you. Xiao Yu said politely and took the booklet. When he opened it, he was shocked. So much food? I'm afraid the granary of Chang, and city can't hold it all. Hearing this, Yen Lide was very curious. He thought that the official ship of the imperial court had only brought a little silk and porcelain. At most, it could be exchanged for more than 100,000 jin of food. How could the granary of Chang, and city not be able to hold it all? Sherwin, Xiao Yu's courtesy name, let me see how much food you have. Then, Yen Lide eagerly came over and wanted to see what was on the booklet. When he saw the number on the booklet, his eyes widened and he exclaimed, This 880,000 jin? So many jin of food, Taitsong can't hold it all. It has to be transported to Hanjia Tsang in Luoyang. The Taitsong he was talking about was the largest granary in Chang'an City. It was also the granary of the imperial family. Its main function was to provide for the imperial family's consumption, rewards, salaries of officials, military supplies, and government accounts. Although Taitsong's main function was to serve the central government, it also had some positive functions. For example, every time there was a famine, Taitsong would take out grain to replenish Chongping-tsang and suppress the price of grain. It would also sell some grain at a low price to help the victims. However, Taitsong's total storage was not very high. It could only store 500 to 600 jin of grain at most. Moreover, the autumn harvest had just passed, so there was even less space left in Taitsong. That was why these two big shots of the imperial court sighed with emotion. As for the Hanjia Tsang that Yen Lide mentioned, it was the largest granary in the Tang Empire. At the start of the Sui dynasty, Chang'an was built, but the Guangzhou region was unable to satisfy the needs of the imperial family, officials, and the central army. During the Day era, to satisfy the grain needs of Chang'an, Emperor Yang built the Grand Canal. Later on, Yang Guang directly moved the capital to Luoyang. After establishing Luoyang, Yang Guang first built Huiluotsang as the national granary in Luoyang. The entire Huiluotsang city was 1,000 meters from east to west, 335 meters from north to south, and around 700 warehouses with a diameter of 10 meters. Each warehouse could store 4,000 jin of grain, and the entire city could store 3 million jin of grain. As Huiluotsang was built outside of Sui Tang Luoyang City, at the end of the Sui Dynasty, the world was in chaos. Li Mi took Huiluotsang, and Luoyang City fell into a situation where there was no grain. Later on, Huiluotsang became the focus of the war between Li Shimin and Wang Shichong. The warehouses outside the city were occupied, and Wang Shichong lost due to a severe lack of grain. Later on, Li Shimin saw the disadvantages of having a granary outside the city, and he decided to build one within Luoyang City to prevent the same thing from happening. This granary that was carefully designed by Li Shimin was Hanjiatsang. Not only did Hanjiatsang provide grain for Luoyang City, but it also acted as a transportation station between Guangdong and Guangzhou. Later on, it slowly replaced the largest granary at that time, Luokotsang, and became the largest granary in the world, with a total storage of close to 6 million jin. Indeed, first move 150,000 jin of grain to Taitsang, and the rest can only be transported to Luoyang along the Grand Canal. Lide, you take care of things here. I'll go to the palace to ask for a decree to send a portion of the official ships to Luoyang. Xiao Yu thought about it and decided to ask for Li Er's opinion. Otherwise, with so much grain, there would be no place to store it, and it would only benefit the rat. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.